I stood outside the grand ballroom door's wedding invitation crumpled in my hand as security blocked my path. "Sorry, you're not on the guest list," the guard said firmly. Through the glass, I watched my brother Jason toast his bride surrounded by our entire family. Just yesterday, he'd sneered at me in front of everyone. Why would I want a garbage collector at my wedding? You'll embarrass me. If only he knew that the garbage I collected was worth more than his entire wedding. 2 weeks before that humiliating moment at the wedding venue, our entire family had gathered at my parents' house in suburban Detroit. The dining room buzzed with excitement about Jason's upcoming nuptials to Madison Caldwell, daughter of prominent businessman Richard Caldwell. Mom had prepared her famous pot roast, and the table overflowed with wedding planning materials, fabric swatches, and seating charts. I arrived straight from work still wearing my Executive Aviation Services uniform. The navy blue blazer with our company logo had become my second skin over the years, though my family only saw the words Aviation Services and assumed the worst. As I entered the dining room, conversations gradually died down, replaced by an uncomfortable silence that had become all too familiar. "Laura's here," Mom announced unnecessarily, her tone suggesting she wished otherwise. Jason looked up from his phone, his expression shifting from neutral to disgusted in seconds. At 32, my older brother had perfected the art of looking down on others, especially me. His perfectly styled hair and designer suit screamed success, or at least his version of it. "Actually perfect timing," Jason said, setting down his phone with deliberate precision. "I needed to talk to you about the wedding." My heart lifted slightly. Maybe he wanted me to give a speech or help with something meaningful. I settled into my usual chair, the one with the wobbly leg that nobody else wanted. "I've been thinking." He continued, his fingers drumming against the mahogany table. "The guest list is pretty exclusive. We've got Madison's family flying in from Connecticut, partners from my firm, some potential clients, important people." Madison, blonde and perfectly manicured, nodded supportively beside him. She'd barely spoken 10 words to me since they'd started dating 2 years ago. And I prompted, though dread was already settling in my stomach. "And I think it would be best if you didn't attend." The words hung in the air like a toxic cloud. Mom stopped fussing with the centerpiece. Dad lowered his newspaper. Even our cousin Sarah, who'd been scrolling through her phone, looked up in shock. "You're uninviting me from your wedding." My voice came out steadier than I felt. "Look, let's be honest here." Jason leaned back, adopting his consultant voice, the one he used when explaining obvious things to people he considered beneath him. "You're just a passenger's garbage collector. You clean up trash on airplanes. How am I supposed to introduce you to Madison's father, to my managing partner?" "I work in aviation services," I corrected quietly. "Right, you're a glorified janitor at the airport." He laughed, a harsh sound devoid of humor. "Can you imagine the Caldwells' faces when they ask what my sister does for a living? Oh, she empties sick bags and wipes down tray tables." "Really impressive, Laura." Each word felt like a physical blow. I looked around the table, searching for support for someone to speak up. Mom fidgeted with her napkin. Dad suddenly found the ceiling fascinating. "Mom, I tried." She sighed heavily as if I was being unreasonable. "Honey, Jason has a point. This is his special day. He needs to make the right impression on his new family and business connections." "So you agree with him?" Disbelief colored my voice. "Well," Dad finally contributed, adjusting his glasses. "You have to understand, sweetheart, the Caldwells are a different caliber of people. Maybe you could help out behind the scenes instead. You know, with setup or cleanup afterward." The irony wasn't lost on me. Even at a family wedding, they wanted me doing what they believed was my job, cleaning up after others. "This is ridiculous." Uncle Frank spoke up from the far end of the table. At 68, he was Mom's older brother and the only family member who'd ever shown me genuine kindness. "Laura is family. You don't exclude family because of their job." Jason's face darkened. Uncle Frank, with all due respect, this isn't your decision, and frankly, if you have a problem with it, maybe you should reconsider your own invitation. The table erupted in gasps. Threatening Uncle Frank was a new low even for Jason. "Jason," Sarah exclaimed, "you can't be serious." "I'm dead serious," he shot back. "This wedding is going to be featured in Modern Luxury magazine. Madison's father has connections everywhere. I'm not risking my reputation because Laura couldn't bother to make something of herself." "Making something of herself," Uncle Frank's voice rose. "Do you have any idea what your sister has accomplished? Do you know anything about her beyond your own prejudices?" "I know she's 28 years old and still cleaning airplanes," Jason retorted. "I know she drives a 10-year-old Honda while I'm about to close a deal on a BMW. I know she rents a studio apartment while Madison and I are looking at houses in Bloomfield Hills. Should I go on?" Madison finally spoke, her voice dripping with false sympathy. "Laura, please understand. We're not trying to be cruel. It's just that the wedding will have a certain atmosphere. We want everyone to feel comfortable." "You mean you don't want your rich friends to feel uncomfortable around the working class?" I translated. "That's not what she said," Mom interjected quickly. "It's exactly what she said," Uncle Frank countered, "and you're all going along with it. Shame on every one of you." "If you don't like it, don't come," Jason snapped. "I won't have anyone at my wedding who doesn't support my decisions." The room fell silent. Uncle Frank stood slowly, his arthritic knees protesting. "Then I guess you'll have one less guest. I wouldn't want to attend a wedding where family is treated like hired help." "Frank, sit down," Mom pleaded. "You're being dramatic." "No, Helen. Your son is being a snob and you're enabling him." He turned to me, his weathered face soft with sympathy. "Laura, you're worth 10 of him. Don't let anyone tell you otherwise." As he walked out, Jason actually smirked. "Good riddance. One less mouth to feed." "So it's settled then?" Madison asked brightly, as if we'd just decided on appetizers. "Laura understands." I stood up my chair, scraping against the hardwood floor. "Oh, I understand perfectly. You're so insecure about your own worth that you need to surround yourself with people you consider successful to feel validated. You're so shallow that you judge someone's entire value by their job title. And you're so cruel that you'd hurt your own sister to impress strangers." "Don't be so dramatic," Mom scolded. "Jason's trying to build a life, make connections. You should be happy for him instead of making this about you." "When have any of you ever made anything about me?" The question burst out before I could stop it. "When I graduated high school with honors, you were too busy celebrating Jason barely passing his classes. When I got promoted at work, you changed the subject to Jason's new apartment. When I needed help with college tuition, you said money was tight, but somehow found $50,000 for Jason's MBA. That was an investment in his future, Dad defended. And what am I, a write-off?" "You're being childish," Jason said dismissively. "This victim mentality is exactly why you're stuck where you are. Maybe if you'd applied yourself like I did, we wouldn't be having this conversation." I looked at each of their faces, memorizing their expressions. Mom's disappointed frown, Dad's avoidance, Jason's smugness, Madison's fake concern, Sarah's uncomfortable silence. Only Uncle Frank's empty chair showed any integrity. "You know what, you're right," I said finally. "We shouldn't be having this conversation. Family doesn't treat each other this way." "So you'll skip the wedding without making a fuss?" Jason asked hopefully. "Oh, I'll skip the wedding," I confirmed, "and everything else that involves any of you. You want me out of your life because I'm an embarrassment. Consider it done. From this moment on, I don't have a brother. I don't have parents who choose sides. I have work to do and a life to live without people who see me as less than." "Laura, don't be ridiculous," Mom called as I headed for the door. I paused, hand on the doorknob. "You just sided with him as he uninvited me from his wedding because of my job. The only ridiculous thing here is that I kept hoping you'd finally see me as more than Jason's disappointing sister. Goodbye." The cool February air hit my face as I stepped outside, and I heard Jason's voice through the window. "She'll be back. She always comes crawling back when she needs something. But he was wrong. As I drove away in my decade-old Honda, I wasn't planning to crawl anywhere. I was planning to soar, and they'd never see it coming. The morning after that disastrous family dinner, I sat in my corner office on the top floor of the Executive Aviation Services building, watching planes take off from Detroit Metropolitan Airport. The floor-to-ceiling windows offered a view most people would kill for, but I'd earned every square inch of it through blood sweat and more 16-hour days than I could count. My assistant Marcus knocked gently before entering with my morning coffee. "The quarterly reports you requested," he said, placing a leather folder on my desk. "And Richard Caldwell's office called again. He's very interested in meeting with you personally about the charter services." Richard Caldwell. My future brother-in-law's father, though he had no idea who I was, beyond being the CEO of one of the most successful private aviation companies in the Midwest. The irony was delicious, but I pushed it aside. I hadn't built this empire for revenge. I'd built it because everyone said I couldn't. I opened the folder, scanning the numbers that never failed to amaze me. 12 private jets in our fleet, 48 million in assets, 320 employees who counted on me for their livelihoods, all from a girl who started by scrubbing coffee stains off airplane seats. The journey flashed through my mind as it often did when I sat in this office. 19 years old, working the graveyard shift at the airport because it paid an extra $2 an hour. My supervisor, Harold, was a cranky 70-year-old who'd been cleaning planes since the jet age began. "You're different from the others," he'd told me one night as we detailed a CEO's Gulfstream. "You actually care about doing it right." "It's someone's private space," I'd replied, carefully polishing the leather seats. "They deserve it to be perfect." Harold had studied me for a long moment. "You know I'm retiring next month. Been thinking about what to do with my cleaning contracts. Built them up over 40 years, got exclusive deals with 3 charter companies." "That's amazing," I'd said, genuinely impressed. "Problem is, my kids don't want the business. Think it's beneath them." He'd laughed bitterly. "Beneath them, but they sure don't mind the money it made to put them through college." That night changed everything. Harold offered to sell me his contracts for $30,000, payment plan included. I worked 3 jobs, saved every penny, ate ramen for months, and slept 4 hours a night. My family thought I was crazy when I mentioned buying a cleaning business, so I stopped mentioning it. Within a year, I'd expanded from 3 contracts to 10. I hired, carefully treating employees with respect and paying above market rate. Quality attracted more high-end clients. By 22, I had contracts with every major charter service in Michigan. But the real breakthrough came when billionaire tech mogul David Chen's jet needed emergency cleaning before a crucial meeting. Every other service was booked. We made it spotless in 90 minutes. He was so impressed, he offered me a contract for his entire fleet and introduced me to his network. "You should expand beyond cleaning," he'd advised. "Charter services, maintenance, the whole package, vertical integration." So I did. Business loan by business loan, plane by plane, I built Executive Aviation Services into what it was today. The cleaning division that started it all now represented just 10% of our revenue. We offered luxury charter services, maintenance pilot training, and concierge services for the ultra-wealthy. The phone on my desk buzzed. "Ms. Stevenson, Mr. Caldwell on line 1. I took a deep breath and picked up. "Richard, good morning." "Laura finally caught you." His voice was warm, friendly, nothing like his future son-in-law's condescending tone. "I've heard incredible things about your operation. My Seattle team raved about their experience last month." "We aim to exceed expectations," I replied smoothly. "Well, you certainly did. Listen, I have a sensitive situation coming up. Big announcement merger talks need to transport 30 executives from various cities to a confidential location. Complete discretion required." "That's our specialty." "Excellent. But I'd like to meet in person first. This is too important for phone calls. How's your schedule next week?" I glanced at my calendar, knowing I'd make time regardless. "I can accommodate your timeline. When works best for you, Tuesday afternoon I can come to your office. I like to see operations firsthand before committing to partnerships. We'd be honored to host you. After confirming the details and ending the call, I leaned back in my chair. He'd be arriving the day after Jason's wedding. The wedding I was banned from attending. Marcus knocked again. Your 10 o'clock is here. Also, this came for you. He handed me an envelope with familiar handwriting. Uncle Frank's letter was short but powerful. Dear Laura, I'm proud of you for standing up to them. Your parents called trying to get me to talk sense into you. I told them the only sensible thing would be for Jason to apologize. They didn't like that. I know you're hurting, but don't let their blindness dim your light. You've always been special, even when they couldn't see it. Your grandmother knew it too. She'd be proud of the woman you've become. Whatever you're building in your life, keep building it. Success isn't about proving them wrong, it's about proving yourself right. All my love, Uncle Frank. I wiped away a tear before Marcus returned with my 10 o'clock appointment. Melissa Hartford, a young woman from inner-city Detroit, entered nervously. She'd applied for our pilot training scholarship program. Miss Stevenson, thank you so much for seeing me, she said, clutching her portfolio. Please call me Laura. Tell me why you want to fly. Her eyes lit up. When I was 8, my dad took me to the airport observation deck. Watching those planes take off, it was like watching freedom itself. I knew that's what I wanted to do, but everyone said kids from my neighborhood don't become pilots. Her words echoed my own journey. Everyone said kids who clean planes don't become CEOs. Everyone said girls from middle-class families don't build empires. What did you tell them? I asked. That I'd prove them wrong. I smiled. Good answer. Welcome to the program, Melissa. Her shriek of joy could probably be heard 3 floors down. As she left practically floating, I thought about Jason and his important guests, his BMW and his magazine wedding. He measured success in status symbols and others' opinions. I measured it in changed lives and built dreams. My phone buzzed with a text from Sarah. Family's going crazy about what you said. Jason's telling everyone you had a mental breakdown. Just thought you should know. I deleted the message without responding. Let them tell whatever story made them comfortable. I had an empire to run and a meeting with Richard Caldwell to prepare for. The best revenge wouldn't be proving them wrong. It would be living so well that their opinions became irrelevant. Looking out at the aircraft below, I remembered something Grandma used to say before she passed. Laura, honey eagles don't fly with pigeons, not because pigeons are beneath them, but because pigeons can't reach the heights where eagles soar. She was right. I'd been trying to fly with pigeons, wondering why they couldn't see the sky I saw. It was time to embrace my wings and soar alone if necessary. 12 jets, 300 employees, and 48 million in assets weren't just numbers. They were proof that the girl who cleaned planes had built her own runway. And I was just getting started. Saturday morning arrived with unexpected sunshine for late February in Michigan. I was reviewing contracts in my home office when my phone rang. Sarah's name appeared on the screen, and despite my better judgment, I answered. Please don't hang up, she said quickly. I need to talk to you. If this is about Jason or the wedding, I'm not interested. It's not about that. Well, not exactly. She paused. Look, Madison's having her bridal shower today at the Townsend Hotel. I know you're not invited, but I think you should be there. Are you insane? I was literally banned from the wedding. I know, but hear me out. Some of Madison's friends were asking about you. They heard Jason has a sister and wondered why you weren't involved. Madison's been making up stories, and they're horrible, Laura. She's telling people you're unstable, that you've been harassing them, that you have substance abuse problems. I can't stand by and watch them destroy your reputation. My knuckles whitened as I gripped the phone. And you think me showing up will help? I think you deserve to face them, to show them you're not who they're making you out to be. Plus, she lowered her voice, Aunt Helen let slip that they're planning to use your absence as more proof that you're troubled. Either you're too ashamed of your job to show up, or you're too unstable to be trusted in public. The calculation was quick. Stay home and let them control the narrative, or show up and face whatever fresh humiliation they had planned. Neither option was appealing, but hiding felt like admitting defeat. "What time?" I heard myself asking. 2:00, Birmingham Ballroom. I'll meet you in the parking lot. I chose my outfit carefully. Not too formal, which would look try-hard, but not too casual either. A simple navy dress, pearl earrings Grandma had left me, and the designer handbag I'd bought myself after closing my first $1 million deal. Looking in the mirror, I saw someone who belonged anywhere she chose to be. Sarah was pacing by the valet stand when I arrived. "You came," she breathed, relief evident. "I wasn't sure you would." "I'm not staying long," I warned, "just long enough to shut down whatever lies they're spreading." The Birmingham Ballroom was exactly what I'd expected. Crystal chandeliers, white lilies everywhere, and 40 women in designer dresses pretending to enjoy finger sandwiches. Madison held court at the center table, her court of bridesmaids surrounding her like ladies in waiting. The chatter died when I entered. Madison's perfectly painted smile faltered for just a moment before she recovered. "Laura," she said, voice carrying across the room. "What a surprise." "Sarah invited me," I said evenly, refusing to show weakness. "I hope that's all right." "Of course," she replied, though her tone suggested otherwise. "Everyone, this is Jason's sister, the one I was telling you about." The weight of 40 pairs of eyes felt like a physical presence. Whispers rippled through the room like wind through grass. "Please sit." Madison gestured to an empty chair at the furthest table, typically reserved for +1s and distant relatives. We were just sharing wedding stories. I made my way to the exile table, feeling like I was walking through a minefield. Sarah sat beside me, offering silent support. "So," Madison continued, raising her voice slightly, "where were we?" "Oh yes, Patricia was telling us about her honeymoon in Bora Bora." The conversation resumed, but I caught the glances, the whispered asides. Madison let it build for about 20 minutes before striking. "You know," she said during a lull, "it's so important to have the right people around you during major life events. People who understand your vision, who fit your aesthetic. Isn't that right, Laura?" Every head turned toward me. "I suppose that depends on whether you value aesthetics over authenticity," I replied. Madison's laugh tinkled like breaking glass. Spoken like someone who's never had to worry about aesthetics. But then again, when you spend your days cleaning up other people's messes, I suppose appearance isn't a priority. "What exactly do you do?" a brunette with too much Botox asked, though her expression suggested she already knew. Before I could answer, Madison jumped in. "Oh, Laura works at the airport. She's in, what's the politically correct term? Sanitation services. She cleans the planes after people use them. Someone has to deal with the vomit and overflowing toilets, right?" The room tittered with uncomfortable laughter. Some women looked genuinely appalled. Others seemed to be enjoying the show. "Actually," I started, but Madison cut me off. "It's admirable, really. Not everyone can handle that kind of work. The smells, the awful hours dealing with people's literal garbage. Jason says you've been doing it for 9 years now. That's dedication." "Or lack of options," one of her bridesmaids murmured loud enough to be heard. Now, Madison said with false magnanimity, "not everyone can marry into success. Some people have to clean toilets. Society needs all types." My face burned, but I kept my expression neutral. Sarah's hand found mine under the table, squeezing supportively. "Though I do wonder," Madison continued, clearly enjoying herself, "how do you handle it? The glamorous life of airplane janitor. Do you at least get to keep the little liquor bottles people leave behind?" More laughter. Someone actually took out their phone, presumably to record this humiliation for posterity. "You know what I handle?" I said, standing up. "I handle entitled people who think their worth comes from their bank account or who they marry. I handle maintaining dignity while others try to tear it down. I handle building something from nothing while watching people who were handed everything act like they earned it." "Oh, honey," Madison's voice dripped condescension. "Is this the breakdown Jason warned us about? Should we call someone?" That's when I noticed a woman at a corner table, elegantly dressed, but separate from the main group. She'd been watching the entire exchange with an unreadable expression. Whitney Morrison, if I remembered correctly from the photos Sarah had shown me, Madison's former roommate from Yale and her maid of honor. Our eyes met and I saw recognition flash across her face. Not personal recognition, but something else. Her hand moved to her phone fingers, flying across the screen. "There's no breakdown," I said calmly. "Just clarity. I see exactly who you all are, and frankly, I'm grateful Jason uninvited me from your wedding. I wouldn't want to celebrate a union based on lies and sustained by cruelty." "Lies," Madison's voice sharpened. "The only liar here is you pretending you belong in places like this. Look around, Laura. These women run charities, manage foundations, lead society. You clean up their trash. Know your place." "I do know my place," I replied. "It's anywhere I choose to be, regardless of what you or anyone else thinks." I turned to leave, but Madison wasn't done. "Running away, typical. Jason said you always quit when things get hard. No wonder you're still scrubbing toilets while he's making executive decisions." Whitney stood up abruptly. "Madison, that's enough." The room fell silent at the unexpected intervention. "Whitney." Madison's voice was uncertain now. Whitney walked toward me, her expression kind but determined. "I don't think we've been properly introduced. I'm Whitney Morrison." She extended her hand and I shook it confused. "I believe we have some mutual acquaintances in the business world." She was being deliberately vague, but her eyes were trying to communicate something. Then she turned back to Madison. "You might want to be careful about making assumptions about people. You never know who they really are or what they've accomplished." "What are you talking about?" Madison demanded. "Nothing," Whitney said smoothly. "Just friendly advice." She looked at me again. "It was lovely to meet you, Laura. Perhaps we'll run into each other again under better circumstances." As I left the hotel, my phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. "Check your LinkedIn messages when you get home. W." In my car, hands shaking with residual anger, I pulled up LinkedIn on my phone. Whitney's message was waiting. "I recognized you from the Forbes 40 Under 40 article. Executive Aviation Services, right? I've been trying to convince my father to use your company for his overseas expansions. I'm sorry about what happened in there. Madison has no idea who you really are, does she? Neither does Jason, I'm guessing. Your secret is safe with me, but I wanted you to know that not everyone in that room judges people by their assumptions. Would love to discuss potential business when you're ready. Whitney Morrison." I stared at the message, then laughed. Actually laughed. Here I was letting Madison humiliate me over a job I hadn't done in years, while one of her best friends was trying to become my client. The irony was delicious, but more than that, it was clarifying. They could tell all the stories they wanted. They could mock and humiliate and assume. But reality had a way of revealing itself, and when it did, I'd be ready. For now, let them think they'd won. Let them believe their own lies. The truth was patient, and so was I. That night I couldn't sleep. The humiliation from the bridal shower played on repeat in my mind, but it was Whitney's message that kept me awake. Someone had seen through the facade, recognized me for who I really was, not who my family painted me to be. It stirred up memories I'd buried, deep reminders of why I'd fought so hard to become someone they couldn't dismiss. I wandered through my penthouse apartment, a far cry from the studio Jason had mocked. 28th floor panoramic views of the Detroit skyline, 2,400 square feet of space I'd earned with every 16-hour day, every rejected loan application, every night I'd fallen asleep over business plans. The photo album sat on my bookshelf, dusty from neglect. I rarely looked back, but tonight felt like a night for remembering. Opening it released the scent of old paper and forgotten dreams. There we were, Jason and me, ages 10 and 7, his arm thrown carelessly around my shoulders, my gap-toothed grin beaming at the camera. We'd been close once before he learned that crushing others could elevate himself. The shift started in middle school. Jason discovered he was handsome, charming, that his smile could get him out of trouble and into favor. I discovered I was smart, determined, but apparently that counted for less in the Stevenson household. "Why can't you be more like your brother?" became Mom's refrain when I brought home straight A's while Jason squeaked by with C's. "He knows how to talk to people, how to make connections. That's what matters in life." High school made it worse. Jason was homecoming king, dated the mayor's daughter, got into Michigan State, despite mediocre grades because Dad golfed with someone in admissions. I was valedictorian, got into Northwestern with an academic scholarship, but my parents threw a party for Jason's acceptance and gave me a card for mine. "Northwestern's so expensive," Mom had fretted. "Even with the scholarship, maybe you should consider community college first." "But you're paying full tuition for Jason," I'd pointed out. "That's different. He needs the full college experience for networking. You're smart enough to succeed anywhere." Translation: "We'll invest in Jason because he needs it. You're on your own because you can handle it." So I handled it, took out loans they refused to co-sign, worked 3 jobs during school, graduated summa cum laude while Jason took 6 years to finish his bachelor's, changing majors, 4 times partying, more than studying. The weekend I graduated, they didn't come. Jason had a golf tournament apparently more important than their daughter's collegiate triumph. Uncle Frank drove up from Detroit, brought flowers, and took me to dinner. "Don't let them dim your light," he'd said, echoing words I'd heard before. "Your grandmother saw it in you, said you reminded her of herself at that age, too big for the box they tried to put you in." The photo album revealed more evidence of the pattern. Jason's college graduation, the whole family in attendance. My first promotion at the aviation company, celebrated alone. Jason's first apartment furnished by our parents. My first business loan rejection, faced without support. But one photo stopped me cold. Grandma's 85th birthday, her last. She sat between Jason and me, but her hand rested on mine. On the back in her shaky handwriting, "My Laura destined for greatness. Never forget who you are, even when they do." I found her birthday card tucked between pages, the one Uncle Frank had referenced. Inside, beyond the standard Hallmark message she'd written, "My dear Laura, by the time you read this, I'll probably be gone, but I need you to know what I see in you. You have the spark, the one that skips generations. Your brother got the charm, but you got the steel. They'll try to make you feel less than because people always fear what they don't understand. Don't bend, don't break, build. Your parents mean well, but they see what's easy to see. Jason fits their understanding of success. You'll redefine it. When you do remember, it wasn't to prove them wrong. It was to prove yourself right. I'm leaving you my pearl earrings. Wear them when you need to remember your worth. They're not valuable to anyone but us, but that's what makes them precious. All my love and faith, Grandma." I touched the pearls in my ears, the ones I'd worn to the bridal shower. She'd been gone 6 years now, never saw what I built, but somehow she'd known I would build it. The irony was that I'd tried to share my success with them in the beginning. When I landed my first major contract, I called Mom, excited to share the news. "That's nice, honey," she'd said distractedly. "Oh, did I tell you Jason got promoted to senior analyst?" When I bought my first plane, a used Cessna that needed work but represented everything I dreamed of, I invited Dad to see it. "Seems like a risky investment," he'd worried. "Are you sure you're not getting in over your head? Jason says the aviation industry is volatile." Jason, always Jason. The expert on everything despite never working in aviation, never building anything, never risking anything beyond other people's money. When Executive Aviation Services was featured in Crane's Detroit Business as one of the fastest growing companies in Michigan, I sent them the article. No response. But when Jason was mentioned in a company newsletter for landing a client, Mom framed it. Eventually, I stopped trying, stopped sharing victories they wouldn't celebrate, stopped seeking approval they wouldn't give, started building in silence, surrounding myself with people who saw my worth without blood obligation. People like Marcus, who'd started as a janitor and was now my chief operations officer. Like David Chen, who'd believed in my vision when banks wouldn't. Like Harold, who'd seen potential where others saw just another kid cleaning planes. My phone buzzed, a text from an unknown number, but I recognized the tone immediately. Jason. Heard you crashed Madison's shower. Real classy Laura. This is why we didn't want you at the wedding. You can't help but make everything about you. Some of us are trying to build real lives here, not play pretend CEO. Do us all a favor and stay away from my day. I started to type a response, then deleted it. Started again, deleted again. Finally, I simply blocked the number. He could keep his day, his wedding, his delusions. I had a meeting with his father-in-law next week that would be worth more than all his pretense combined. Looking out at the city lights, I thought about paths not taken. What if they'd believed in me? What if they'd supported my dreams, the way they'd supported Jason's failures? Would I have worked as hard, fought as fiercely, built as determinedly? Probably not. Their doubt had been rocket fuel. Their dismissal had been motivation. Not healthy, perhaps, but effective. Every "you can't" became an "I will." Every "be realistic" became a "watch me." But tomorrow I decided I'd stop building to prove them wrong. Grandma was right. It was time to build to prove myself right, to create something that mattered beyond their opinions, that helped people who'd been dismissed like I had. The scholarship program would expand. More Melissa Hartfords would get their wings. Kids from neighborhoods written off from families that didn't believe from circumstances that said, "Be realistic," would learn to fly. That would be my legacy. Not the jets, not the millions, not the magazine features they'd never read, but the lights I'd help ignite in others who'd been told to dim theirs. I closed the photo album but kept Grandma's card out. Tomorrow I'd frame it for my office, a reminder of who saw me first, who believed when no one else did. Never forget who you are, even when they do. I wouldn't forget, but more importantly, I'd make sure others remembered who they were, too, especially when the world tried to make them forget. The morning of Jason's wedding dawned crisp and clear, one of those rare Michigan days in early March where winter loosened its grip just enough to hint at spring. I woke at 5, my usual time, and went through my normal routine coffee emails, reviewing contracts for Tuesday's meeting with Richard Caldwell. Just another Saturday, I told myself, except for the persistent ache in my chest. By noon, I'd convinced myself I was fine. By 2, when the ceremony would be starting, I found myself driving aimlessly through Birmingham, the invitation I'd received months ago, sitting on my passenger seat. Before the family dinner, before the humiliation, before the betrayal, I'd been included. That invitation was proof that once upon a time I'd mattered enough to make the list. Some self-destructive impulse drove me to the venue, the Birmingham Country Club, where Detroit's elite celebrated their mergers and acquisitions, both corporate and marital. I parked across the street far enough to avoid notice, but close enough to torture myself with glimpses of arriving guests. Uncle Frank would have been appalled. "Why give them the power to hurt you?" he'd ask. But I needed closure, needed to see with my own eyes the family that had chosen appearances over authenticity. The who's who of Detroit society streamed through the ornate gates. I recognized several clients, a few competitors, and enough politicians to run a small government. Madison's family had pulled out all stops. Valet parking a string quartet, visible through the windows, enough flowers to stock a botanical garden. Then I saw them. My parents' mom in a champagne-colored dress that probably cost more than she'd ever spent on my birthdays. Combined, Dad uncomfortable but proud in his tuxedo. They walked arm in arm with Jason, who looked like he'd stepped out of a wedding magazine. Madison followed with her parents, her dress a cloud of expensive lace and carefully crafted elegance. The photographer arranged them for photos on the manicured lawn. The perfect family minus one inconvenient daughter. I watched Mom fuss with Jason's boutonniere, watched Dad clap him on the shoulder, watched them all laugh at something Madison's father said. They looked complete without me, happy even. That's when the self-destructive impulse evolved into something more dangerous hope. Maybe if they saw me dressed appropriately, behaving perfectly, they'd realize their mistake. Maybe the wedding day would soften their hearts. Maybe family would matter more than their prejudices. I looked at myself in the rearview mirror. I dressed carefully that morning, telling myself it was for my afternoon of work, but the elegant black dress, the subtle makeup, the pearl earrings all suggested I'd been preparing for something else. Before reason could intervene, I was out of my car, crossing the street, approaching the entrance with my invitation clutched like a lifeline. The security guard, a broad-shouldered man with kind eyes, smiled as I approached. "Good afternoon, ma'am. May I see your invitation?" I handed it over, my name clearly printed in gold calligraphy. He scanned his list, his smile faltering. "I'm sorry, ma'am, but you're not on the approved guest list." "There must be a mistake. That's my invitation. I'm Laura Stevenson, the groom's sister." His expression shifted to something like pity. "Yes, ma'am, I see that, but I have specific instructions." He pulled out a photo from his clipboard. "My photo. You're on the excluded list. I'm not to allow you entry under any circumstances." The blood drained from my face. They'd given security my picture, like I was some kind of threat, some stalker to be kept at bay. "Could you check again? Maybe call someone?" "I'm sorry, but my instructions were very clear. Mr. Stevenson himself provided this photo and said you might try to cause a disruption." "A disruption? I just want to attend my brother's wedding." Through the glass doors, I could see the reception area filling with guests. The ceremony must have ended while I was driving around, wrestling with myself. Champagne flutes caught the light from crystal chandeliers. My family was in there celebrating while I stood outside like a beggar at the feast. "Is there a problem here?" A familiar voice made me turn. Madison's cousin, whom I'd met once at a holiday party, approached with his wife. "This woman's trying to crash the wedding," the security guard explained. "She's on the exclusion list." "I'm not crashing anything. I'm Jason's sister." The cousin's eyes widened with recognition, then narrowed with disdain. "Oh, the janitor. Madison mentioned you might try something like this. How embarrassing for you." His wife tittered behind her hand. They swept past me, the guard holding the door for them, while keeping his body positioned to block my entry. Through the open door, I heard Jason's voice carrying over the crowd, giving some kind of toast. The words were indistinct, but the laughter that followed was crystal clear. Then, as if the universe wanted to twist the knife deeper, I heard my name, not called in welcome, but spoken with derision. Jason's voice became clearer as he apparently moved closer to the entrance. "Grateful she's not here, honestly. My sister has some issues, mental health problems we've tried to address as a family. She's fixated on status, jealous of anyone's success. It's sad, really. We tried to help her, but some people prefer to wallow in their failures rather than seeking help." Murmurs of sympathy rippled through the crowd. Someone mentioned how difficult it must be having an unstable family member. Another voice, possibly Madison's mother, added, "You're better off keeping distance. These situations can become dangerous if enabled." "Exactly." My mother's voice chimed in. "We've done everything we could. Therapy, interventions, tough love. But Laura refuses to acknowledge her problems. She lives in fantasy claims to run some big company when she actually cleans planes. The delusions have gotten worse lately." Each word was a calculated blow designed to destroy any credibility I might have with their social circle. They weren't just excluding me, they were assassinating my character to justify it. The security guard shifted uncomfortably. "Ma'am, I think it's best if you leave now." But I couldn't move. Through the doorway, I saw the photographer, the same one from the family photos earlier. He'd shifted position, his camera aimed not at the reception but at the entrance. At me. He was documenting my humiliation, probably at Jason's request, evidence of the crazy sister who tried to crash the wedding. "Get some video, too," I heard Jason instruct him, "just in case we need it for a restraining order." That broke my paralysis. A restraining order against his own sister for the crime of existing, of wanting to witness his marriage, of hoping family meant something. The cousin pulled out his phone, clearly ready to add his own documentation to their collection. Other guests had noticed the commotion, drifting closer to the entrance to watch the drama unfold. I recognized several faces people I'd encounter in business who had no idea the unstable janitor they were gawking at was the CEO they'd been trying to meet with. "I'll go," I said quietly, dignity the only thing left to salvage. "But first, let me be clear. I'm not mentally ill. I'm not delusional. I'm not jealous or unstable or any of the lies being spread in there. I'm just someone who made the mistake of believing family meant unconditional love. Clearly, I was wrong." The security guard nodded sympathetically but maintained his position. As I turned to leave, I caught a glimpse of the photographer adjusting his lens, trying to capture my retreat. On impulse, I turned back, looking directly into the camera. "Getting all this?" I asked him. "Make sure you capture the moment a brother chose cruelty over kindness, when parents chose appearances over their child, when a family chose lies over love. That's the real story here." The photographer lowered his camera, something flickering across his face. Recognition, shame. But before I could identify it, Jason appeared in the doorway. "Still causing scenes, Laura. This is exactly why you weren't invited. You can't help but make everything about you. The only scene here is the one you created by giving security my photo like I'm some kind of criminal. Preventive measures," he said coolly, "and clearly necessary. Normal people don't show up where they're not wanted. Normal brothers don't ban their sisters from their weddings because of their jobs. It's not about your job. It's about your whole," he gestured vaguely at me, "situation. The delusions, the jealousy, the inability to accept reality. Mom and Dad are worried sick about you. So worried they're in there toasting your marriage while spreading lies about my mental health. See, this paranoia is exactly what I'm talking about. Everything's a conspiracy, everyone's against you. Classic symptoms." The gaslighting was so smooth, so practiced, I almost wondered if I was crazy. Almost. But the photo in the security guard's hand was real. The exclusion was real. The character assassination I'd overheard was real. Goodbye, Jason. Enjoy your wedding. Enjoy your life built on lies and sustained by cruelty. When it all falls apart, remember this moment. Remember that you had a choice, and you chose this. Dramatic to the end, he smirked. "Security, if she's not gone in 30 seconds, call the police." As I walked back to my car, I heard Madison's voice join Jason's, their laughter mixing with the distant sound of champagne glasses clinking. The photographer had followed me out, his camera lowered. "Ms. Stevenson," he called quietly. I turned, expecting more humiliation. "I know who you are," he said, glancing back to ensure we weren't overheard. "My daughter, Emma, received one of your scholarships last year. She's training to be a pilot now, thanks to you. What they're doing in there, what they're saying, it's wrong." "Your daughter's Emma Chen. She's brilliant, top of her class. Because you gave her a chance when everyone else saw a kid from the wrong zip code." He pulled out a small recording device. "I've been documenting everything today, including what your family's been saying. The real story. If you ever need it..." "Why would you risk your job?" "Because some stories need to be told truthfully. And because my daughter would never forgive me if I stood by and let them do this to you." He handed me a business card. "My personal number, when you're ready." As I drove away, the country club shrinking in my rearview mirror, I thought about paths converging in unexpected ways. The photographer whose daughter I'd helped, Whitney recognizing me from Forbes, Uncle Frank standing up for me, Richard Caldwell seeking my services. Jason could have his wedding, his lies, his carefully curated life. But truth has a way of surfacing like cream rising to the top or jets ascending through clouds. And when it did, I'd be flying high above their reach in skies they never even knew existed. Monday morning arrived with the kind of purpose that only comes from righteous determination. The weekend's humiliation had crystallized into something harder, sharper resolve. I arrived at the office before sunrise, the city still sleeping below my window as I prepared for the most important meeting of my career. Marcus knocked at 7 sharp with my coffee and the final preparations for Richard Caldwell's visit. "The conference room is set, the tour route is planned, and the team is briefed. Also," He hesitated. There's been some social media chatter about a wedding incident over the weekend. Should we be concerned? I pulled up my tablet, scanning the posts. A few guests from Jason's wedding had shared photos, careful to crop out any drama at the entrance. But the comments told a different story. Whispers about a scene, speculation about the absent sister theories, ranging from addiction to mental illness to criminal behavior. No, I decided. Let them talk. We have bigger things to focus on. The morning flew by in final preparations. Every jet was detailed to perfection. Every employee briefed on the potential partnership. This wasn't just about landing a client. This was about establishing executive aviation services as the premium choice for Fortune 500 companies. Richard Caldwell arrived at exactly 2 o'clock, 15 minutes early for our 2:15 meeting. I watched from my office window as he emerged from a modest BMW, not the Bentley or Mercedes I'd expected. He studied our building with the sharp eyes of a man who'd built his own empire, taking in every detail from the landscaping to the security protocols. I met him in the lobby personally. At 62, Richard Caldwell commanded attention without demanding it. His handshake was firm, his smile genuine, and his eyes missed nothing. Ms. Stevenson, thank you for accommodating my schedule. I know weekday afternoons aren't ideal for tours. Mr. Caldwell, for the opportunity to work with your organization, we'd meet at midnight on Christmas if needed. He laughed, a warm sound that reminded me nothing of his new son-in-law's calculated charm. I appreciate dedication, but let's hope it doesn't come to that. Please call me Richard. The tour began with our maintenance facilities. I'd learned long ago that serious clients wanted to see the unglamorous parts first. Anyone could showcase luxury interiors. Few could demonstrate meticulous attention to safety and maintenance. This is impressive, Richard noted, watching our chief mechanic run through a diagnostic check. How many safety certifications does your team hold? Every mechanic has at least 3 advanced certifications. We exceed FAA requirements by 200%. When someone trusts us with their life at 40,000 feet, meeting minimum standards isn't enough. Agreed. I've seen too many companies cut corners on maintenance, then wonder why clients don't return. He paused, studying me. You started in this industry young, didn't you? 19, cleaning crews, night shift. And now you own all this. It wasn't a question. That's quite a journey. Family business. No. Built from scratch. I kept my tone neutral, professional. No hint of the family who'd dismiss that journey as failure. We moved through the facilities, the pilot training center, the luxury lounges, the concierge offices, where every detail of a client's journey was managed. Richard asked pointed questions, clearly testing my knowledge and depth of understanding. I answered each one thoroughly, watching his approval grow. Now for the fun part, I said, leading him to Hangar 1 where our fleet waited. The 12 jets were arranged perfectly, from the efficient citations to the transcontinental Gulf Streams. Richard walked among them like an art collector in a gallery, appreciating both form and function. This is the one I'm considering for the merger announcement. I indicated our newest acquisition, a Gulfstream G650. 18 passengers, comfortably intercontinental range, and equipped with secure communication systems for sensitive discussions. It's perfect. He ran his hand along the fuselage. You know my son-in-law claims to know aviation. Just yesterday at his wedding, he was boring guests with stories about his connections in the industry, but he's never mentioned your company. My heart stopped, then resumed at double pace. Your son-in-law, Jason Stevenson, married my daughter Madison on Saturday. Quite the production. He shook his head with what looked like mild disapproval. More show than substance if you ask me, but Madison wanted her fairy tale. The universe had a twisted sense of humor. Of all the potential clients in Detroit and Michigan in the world, I was giving a tour to Jason's new father-in-law. I see. I managed, voice steady despite the irony threatening to choke me. Do you know him? Detroit's aviation community isn't that large. The lie would be easy, simple, safe. But I'd built this company on integrity, and I wouldn't compromise that now. I know him very well. Jason is my brother. Richard's eyebrows shot up. Your brother? But he said... He stopped, clearly reassessing something. He said his sister worked in janitorial services at the airport. I did, 9 years ago. It's where I started before building this company. Understanding dawned in his eyes, followed by something that looked like anger. He knew. He knew his sister owned executive aviation services, and at the wedding, the things that were said, what was said, I kept my voice carefully neutral. Richard studied me for a long moment. Nothing worth repeating, but I'm beginning to understand why you weren't there, and why Jason's been pushing me to use a different charter service for the merger. He has, insistently, said he had insider knowledge about reliability issues with local companies. I assume he meant yours specifically. The betrayal cut deeper than I'd thought possible. Not content with excluding me, Jason was actively trying to sabotage my business. I assure you, Mr. Caldwell, our safety and reliability record is impeccable. I can provide documentation. That won't be necessary. His voice was firm. I've done my research. Your company has the best reputation in the Midwest. What I'm more interested in is why a brother would try to undermine his sister's success. I believe Jason and I have different definitions of success. Indeed. Richard pulled out his phone, scrolling through messages. He sent me this last night. Be careful about using local charter services. Some are run by people with questionable mental stability and delusions of grandeur. I assume he meant you. Heat flooded my face. Even now, even after the wedding, Jason was spreading poison. Mr. Caldwell, I understand if family complications make you uncomfortable working with my company. On the contrary, he pocketed his phone. I've built my career on reading people, Ms. Stevenson. In 5 minutes, you showed me more genuine competence than Jason has in 2 years of dating my daughter. The fact that you've succeeded despite family like that tells me everything I need to know about your character. We continued the tour, but the dynamic had shifted. Richard asked about my journey, my challenges, my vision for the company. He shared his own story of building from nothing, of family members who doubted and competitors who'd tried to destroy what threatened them. The merger announcement, he said as we returned to the conference room, will be more than just business news. It's a statement about the future of American industry. I want partners who understand building something from nothing, who know that merit matters more than name or connections. I appreciate that perspective. Which is why I want to sign with your company today, not just for the merger announcement, but as our exclusive aviation partner going forward. He pulled out a leather portfolio. I had my lawyers draw up a preliminary agreement, 5-year contract minimum guarantee of $2 million annually, with performance bonuses based on satisfaction metrics. I read through the terms, fighting to keep my expression professional despite the magnitude of what was happening. This single contract would establish executive aviation services as a major player nationally, not just regionally. This is generous, I said carefully. It's strategic. I've researched your client list. Tech moguls, entertainment executives, Fortune 500 CEOs. The merger announcement will put us in good company. He paused. There is one thing. Jason's been promised a role in the announcement. PR and media relations. He'll be furious when he learns we've contracted with you. I can recommend other excellent aviation services if that would make things easier for your family. Absolutely not. Richard's voice was steel. Jason needs to learn that actions have consequences. He chose to disparage his own sister to spread lies about someone who's accomplished more than he ever will. If he's uncomfortable with my business decisions, he can explain to Madison why he prioritized his ego over her father's company. We signed the contracts, shook hands, and I walked Richard back to his car. As he opened the door, he turned back. Ms. Stevenson, may I offer some unsolicited advice? Of course. The best revenge is massive success, but the best success is one that lifts others while rising. From what I've seen today, you understand that. Don't let family drama distract you from your trajectory. After he left, I stood in the parking lot, contract in hand, watching his BMW disappear into traffic. Marcus appeared beside me. Good meeting. Game-changing meeting. Call the team. We have a merger to plan and a reputation to exceed. As we walked back inside, my phone buzzed with a text from Whitney. Heard Richard was visiting today. Hope it went well. Also thought you should know. Jason's been telling everyone you're trying to sabotage his career out of jealousy. The lies are getting more elaborate. Stay strong. I deleted the message and blocked the number. Not Whitney's number, I saved that. But Jason's influence on my thoughts. Richard was right. The best revenge was massive success, and I had a 5-year contract to fulfill. Let Jason tell his stories. I'd be too busy writing history at 40,000 feet to hear them. The week following Richard's visit transformed into a whirlwind of strategic planning. The merger announcement was scheduled for the following Tuesday, giving us exactly 8 days to coordinate the most complex aviation event we'd ever handled. 30 executives from various cities, all needing to converge at a confidential location with military precision. I assembled my core team in the main conference room Wednesday morning. Marcus led operations, Patricia handled luxury services, Derek managed pilot schedules, and Sarah coordinated ground transportation. The energy was electric. This isn't just about moving people, I explained, spreading detailed maps across the table. This is about creating an experience that reflects the magnitude of their announcement. Every detail matters. Where's the destination? Patricia asked, already calculating catering needs. Mackinac Island. Richard wants somewhere exclusively accessible by air or water, symbolic of the merger bridging gaps. We'll use the Grand Hotel as base, but the actual announcement will be at a private venue. Derek whistled. Weather could be tricky this time of year. Which is why we need backup plans for backup plans. I want alternative routes, reserve aircraft on standby, and weather monitoring starting 48 hours out. We worked 18-hour days fueled by ambition and excellent coffee. Every jet was assigned, every route mapped, every contingency planned. I personally selected pilots knowing Richard's guests would include some of aviation's most experienced travelers. But planning perfection while Jason plotted destruction created an interesting dynamic. By Thursday, Whitney's warnings proved prophetic. My phone buzzed with alerts as Jason's social media transformed into a smear campaign. Concerned about family members struggling with delusions. One post read, "When does helping become enabling? When does love mean letting go?" The comments flooded in, friends and acquaintances offering support for his difficult situation. Madison added her own posts about the stress of dealing with unstable relatives and how grateful she was for a husband who protected their peace. Friday brought an unexpected visitor. The photographer from the wedding, Martin Chen, arrived with a USB drive and a determined expression. "Ms. Stevenson, I've been struggling with this all week, but after seeing what they're posting online, I can't stay silent." The conference room screen filled with wedding footage, but not the pretty parts. Jason holding court at the bar, wine flowing freely as he elaborated on his sister's mental illness. "She's convinced she runs some big company," his recorded voice slurred. "Lives in a fantasy world where she's the successful CEO. It's sad, really. We've tried interventions, but she refuses help." "Poor thing." Madison's mother sympathized. "Cleaning planes all day must be so demoralizing. No wonder she retreats into fantasy." "The worst part," my mother added clearly several champagnes in, "is how she lies about it. Shows up at family events spinning these elaborate tales about contracts and private jets. We just nod along. What else can you do?" The recording continued, each family member adding their own creative embellishments to my supposed mental illness. By the end, according to them, I was one step away from institutionalization. "This is just a sample," Martin said quietly. "I have 3 hours of footage. They spent more time discussing your absence than celebrating the marriage." "Why show me this?" "Because truth matters. My daughter's flying helicopters for the Coast Guard now because you believed in her. I won't let them destroy you with lies." I copied the files, thanked Martin, and returned to planning. The footage burned in my laptop like a living thing, but I had bigger priorities. Revenge could wait. Excellence couldn't. Saturday arrived with weather concerns. A storm system threatened the Great Lakes, potentially disrupting Tuesday's flights. Derek and I spent hours analyzing patterns, adjusting schedules, positioning aircraft strategically. We could suggest postponing, he offered. Richard Caldwell doesn't postpone. We adapt. I pulled up alternative routing. Southern approach, avoiding the system. It'll add flight time but ensure comfort. My phone rang, unknown number, but I recognized Jason's new technique of calling from different lines since I'd blocked his. What do you want? Laura, finally. Listen, I heard through the grapevine that you're working on some big charter deal. I wanted to warn you not to overreach. These delusions of grandeur are getting worse. The only delusion here is your belief that I care about your opinion. I'm trying to help you. Madison's father mentioned using a charter service, and I'd hate for you to embarrass yourself thinking your little cleaning company could handle something that sophisticated. The irony almost made me laugh. Jason, I need to go. Some of us have actual work to do. This is what I'm talking about. This fantasy where you're some big shot. Laura, you clean planes. That's not a bad thing, but pretending it's more than that is sick. Mom and Dad are worried. I hung up and immediately called Patricia. Change of plans. I want champagne on every flight. Not just any champagne, the 96 Krug, and make sure the bottles are visible when passengers board. That's $12,000 per bottle. Richard said he wanted an experience. Let's give him one. Sunday night I couldn't sleep. Everything was planned, coordinated, perfect on paper. But paper didn't fly planes or navigate weather or manage egos. I walked through our hangar checking details, already checked dozen times. You should rest, Marcus said, appearing with his own clipboard. Big day ahead. Couldn't sleep either. This is career-defining for all of us. He paused. I heard about your brother, the wedding thing. News travels. Just wanted to say we've got your back. All of us. You gave us chances when nobody else would. Tomorrow we return the favor. Monday morning's final briefing felt like preparing for battle. Every team member radiated professional determination. The weather had shifted favorably, Richard had confirmed all participants, and our jets were positioned perfectly. Remember, I addressed the assembled crew. We're not just transporting executives, we're facilitating history. Every interaction, every service, every detail reflects who we are. Let's show them why executive aviation services isn't just a choice. It's the only choice. Patricia raised her hand. What about the elephant in the room Jason's going to be at the announcement? He might try to cause problems. Let him try. We'll be too busy being excellent to notice. But I did notice later that evening when an email arrived from Madison. Not to my work address. She didn't have that. But to an old personal account. Laura, I wanted to reach out before tomorrow. Jason doesn't know I'm writing this. He's been acting strange all week, obsessed with your company's involvement in Daddy's announcement. He keeps saying you're going to ruin everything, that you'll have some breakdown in front of everyone. I'm starting to worry his fixation on you is the real problem here. Maybe it's best if you assign someone else to handle our flights, just to avoid drama. Madison. I drafted 12 different responses, each one more scathing than the last. Then I deleted them all and sent a simple reply. Madison Executive Aviation Services has been contracted by your father to provide transportation for his merger announcement. We'll execute our duties with the same professionalism we bring to every client. If Jason has concerns about my mental stability, perhaps he should examine his own obsession with destroying his sister's career. See you Tuesday. Laura. Then I called my leadership team for one final addition to our plans. Change of protocol for Tuesday. I'll be personally overseeing operations from our command center here. Patricia, you'll be the face of EAS on site. If anyone asks about me, you simply say I'm managing logistics remotely. But you always handle VIP events personally, Marcus protested. Not this time. This is about the client, not personal drama. We succeed by being better, not by causing scenes. It killed me to step back to let Jason think he'd won by keeping me away. But Richard was right. The best revenge was massive success. And tomorrow, while Jason spun lies about his delusional sister, that sister would be orchestrating perfection from 30,000 feet above his reach. The forecast for Tuesday: clear skies, minimal turbulence, and a storm front approaching from an unexpected direction. One that wore a designer suit and had no idea the sister he'd dismissed as garbage was about to soar. Tuesday arrived before dawn, the command center already humming with activity when I walked in at 4:30. Screens covered every wall displaying weather patterns, flight paths, and real-time aircraft positions. This was my domain where I could orchestrate perfection without the distraction of personal drama. "Morning, boss." Derek greeted, handing me coffee. "Weather's holding beautifully. First pickup in Boston launches in 90 minutes. I settled into my station, pulling up the master timeline. 30 executives, 12 cities, 8 aircraft, all converging on Mackinac Island by noon. The complexity rivaled air traffic control, but this was what we'd trained for. "Patricia, you there?" I spoke into my headset. On site at the Grand Hotel. Everything's pristine. The presidential suite is ready for Mr. Caldwell, and the conference room setup is stunning. Security. Discreet but thorough. Nobody gets near the venue without clearance. My fingers flew across keyboards monitoring each element. The Gulf Stream picking up tech executives from San Francisco, the Citation collecting banking representatives from New York. Every flight tracked, every detail managed. At 6:15, my personal phone buzzed. Mom calling. I let it go to voicemail, but she immediately called again and again. "Something wrong?" Marcus asked, noticing my distraction. "Family drama, nothing that can't wait." But the calls kept coming. Dad, Sarah, numbers I didn't recognize. Finally, I silenced the phone entirely. Whatever crisis they'd manufactured could wait until after we'd made history. "Boston flight is airborne," Derek announced. Passengers commented on the champagne, said they'd never seen Krug served on a charter. "Good, next pickup. Chicago in 40 minutes, 3 automotive executives." I pulled up social media on a secondary screen, curious about the family communication bombardment. Jason's latest post made everything clear. Trying to stay positive on this important day, but family mental health crises don't pause for business. My sister is apparently orchestrating some elaborate scheme involving my father-in-law's company. I'm genuinely concerned she might show up and cause a scene. If anyone sees her near Mackinac Island, please alert security immediately. She needs help, not enablement. The comments were a mixture of sympathy and speculation, but buried among them Whitney's voice of reason. "Jason, perhaps focus on your own event rather than obsessing over your sister. Just a thought." His response was telling, "Easy to say when your family isn't self-destructing. Some of us have to protect our reputations from unstable relatives." San Francisco requesting early departure. Patricia's voice interrupted. "Passengers eager to get started." "Approved. Adjust the Mackinac arrival accordingly." I pushed family drama aside, focusing on what mattered. Each flight launched perfectly, each passenger settled with luxury. The champagne was a hit, the catering sublime, the service impeccable. By 9:30, most aircraft were airborne. The command center map looked like strategic art planes converging from every direction toward our island destination. "Laura." Patricia's voice carried concern. "We might have a situation. Jason just arrived 3 hours early. He's trying to inspect our setup, asking where you are." "Let him inspect. You're in charge on site. Be polite, professional, and don't give him any information he doesn't need." He's being difficult, telling staff you're not really the CEO, that you're delusional. Some of the hotel employees seem confused. I switched to a private channel. "Patricia, you have full authority to handle this. If he becomes disruptive, hotel security can escort him out. Document everything." "Copy that." The New York flight reported minor turbulence over Pennsylvania. I coordinated with air traffic control, finding a smoother altitude. The passengers never felt more than a gentle bump. Detroit departure in 20. Marcus announced. "That's Richard Caldwell's flight." The most important passenger saved for optimal timing. His jet would arrive precisely when all others had landed, allowing him to make an entrance worthy of the moment. "Chicago flight requesting altitude change," Derek called. "Weather building to the west." "Approved, route them around it." My silenced phone lit up with another call. This time Madison. I almost answered, then remembered her email suggesting I step aside. She'd chosen her side. "Boss, you need to see this." Marcus pointed to a social media feed on his screen. Jason had started live streaming from the hotel. For those concerned about my sister, he spoke to his phone camera. "I'm at the venue now." No sign of her, thankfully, but her employees are here pretending she's running things remotely. The delusion runs deep, folks. They've even got fake company uniforms. The comments ranged from sympathy to skepticism. Someone asked why he was so focused on his sister during his father-in-law's big day. Jason's face reddened. "I'm trying to prevent a disaster. You don't understand what she's capable of." Last week, she showed up at Madison's bridal shower making wild claims. Yesterday, she was calling vendors pretending to be some CEO. Now this... Whitney appeared in frame behind him. "Jason, you're needed in the conference room, now." "I'm documenting this for her own good." "Now." Whitney's tone brooked no argument. The live stream ended abruptly. "All aircraft passed the halfway point," Derek reported. "Looking at 11:45 for final arrival." I allowed myself a moment of satisfaction. Despite Jason's circus, despite family attempts to derail my focus, the operation ran flawlessly. 27 planes delivered 3 more in final approach. "Los Angeles flight checking in," a pilot's voice crackled through. "Passenger wants to compliment the service. Says it's the best charter experience in 40 years of flying." "Thank the passenger and log the compliment," I instructed. "Patricia," I called. Status. "Jason's been contained. Whitney and another bridesmaid basically dragged him to a private room. Richard Caldwell's assistant is here very impressed with our setup. She said Mr. Caldwell specifically chose us over 3 other services Jason recommended. He recommended others. Apparently spent 2 weeks sending his father-in-law spreadsheets about why other companies were better. Richard ignored them all. The satisfaction was better than champagne. While Jason schemed and plotted, professionalism had won. Final approach for Detroit flight, Derek announced. Richard Caldwell. The man who'd seen through facades to truth was about to arrive at an event orchestrated by the sister Jason claimed was delusional. The irony was poetry. 11:40 on the dot, Patricia reported. Richard's plane is touching down. All other passengers are in the conference room networking over champagne. The merger executives are calling this the smoothest multi-city coordination they've ever experienced. Excellent. Remember, you're the face of EAS today. I'm just a voice in your ear. Understood. Though for what it's worth, everyone here knows exactly who made this happen. Your name's on every manifest, every contract. Jason's the only one trying to pretend otherwise. The door to the command center opened. Sarah stood there, still in the uniform I'd given her when she joined the company 6 months ago. A detail I'd kept from family to avoid drama. "Thought you should know," she said quietly. "Mom's been calling me all morning. Jason convinced them you're having a psychotic break, that you've somehow fooled Richard Caldwell into enabling your delusions. They want to do an intervention. Today, this afternoon. They think if they confront you while you're playing CEO, it might snap you back to reality." I laughed. Actually laughed. "Let them try. We'll be in post-flight analysis until 6. They can intervene with my empty apartment." "You know this is insane, right? What they're doing." "I know, but right now I have 3 more planes to land and a merger to facilitate. Family psychodrama can wait." San Francisco aircraft requesting early departure for return flight. Derek called. "Passengers have a dinner engagement." Approved. Assign Captain Morrison, he knows the routes best. Sarah watched me work, seeing me in my element for the first time. "This is really yours, isn't it? All of it." Every plane, every contract, every decision. Then why let them? Because fighting them validates their narrative. I'm too busy succeeding to argue about whether I'm successful. Detroit Passenger has deplaned, Patricia reported. Richard Caldwell is greeting executives personally, and he mentioned you by name. Said the CEO of Executive Aviation Services deserves credit for flawless execution. Jason must be thrilled. He's turned interesting shades of purple. The next hour passed in coordinated chaos. Return flights scheduled, crews, rotated aircraft refueled. Each decision precise, each action documented. By 1 o'clock, the merger announcement was underway, and our Phase 1 operations were complete. Take 5, everyone, I announced to the command center. Phase 2 begins in 30 minutes. I stepped onto the balcony, finally checking my silenced phone. 47 missed calls, 18 voicemails, 112 text messages. The most recent from Mom, Laura, we're staging an intervention at 3. Please don't make this harder than necessary. We've hired a professional to help with your delusions. This fantasy has gone too far. I deleted it and went back inside. Fantasy. They had no idea how real success felt, but they were about to learn. Phase 2 would put Executive Aviation Services on every business news channel in the country. And somewhere in a Mackinac Island conference room, Jason was learning that the sister he'd dismissed as garbage had just orchestrated the flight services for one of the year's biggest corporate announcements. The preparation was over. The execution was flawless. Now came the fun part, watching truth soar while lies crashed and burned. The merger announcement was scheduled for 2 o'clock broadcast live on CNBC Bloomberg and every major financial network. From my command center, I monitored feeds while coordinating return flights. The conference room on Mackinac Island looked immaculate, our company logo discreetly visible on the podium. Patricia, how's the mood? I asked through the headset. Electric. Richard's about to speak. Jason's been pacing like a caged animal since his father-in-law mentioned you by name twice already. The main screen switched to the live feed. Richard Caldwell stepped to the podium, commanding immediate attention. Behind him, 30 executives represented combined assets worth over $80 billion. Ladies and gentlemen, Richard began. Today marks a historic merger between Caldwell Industries and Chen Technologies. But before we discuss the future, I want to acknowledge the present, specifically the flawless execution that brought 30 executives from across the country to this intimate venue. My team exchanged glances. This wasn't part of the planned remarks. In business, we often talk about synergy, about partnerships that elevate both parties. Today's transportation was provided by Executive Aviation Services, a Detroit-based company that exemplifies what American entrepreneurship can achieve. The camera caught Jason's face in the background, his expression cycling through confusion, disbelief, and growing horror. Their CEO started cleaning planes at 19. Richard continued. Today she runs one of the premier private aviation companies in the country. When I chose EAS for this event, some questioned working with a relatively young company, but true leaders recognize excellence regardless of age or background. He's going off script, Patricia whispered in my ear. Jason looks like he might faint. The merger we're announcing today will create opportunities for businesses across America. Companies like Executive Aviation Services, built on merit rather than connections, on work rather than words. Their CEO, Laura Stevenson, couldn't be with us today as she's managing operations personally, but I want her to know that Caldwell Chen Technologies will be proud to partner with EAS for all our aviation needs going forward. The command center erupted in silent celebration. Derek pumped his fist. Marcus grinned widely, and Sarah had tears in her eyes. On screen, reporters were already typing, adding this unexpected endorsement to their stories. Now to the merger details. Richard continued with his planned remarks, but the damage to Jason's ego was done. Incoming call from Madison Caldwell Stevenson. Patricia reported amusement in her voice. She's demanding to speak with whoever's in charge. You're in charge on site, I reminded her. Copy that. This should be fun. My phone exploded with notifications. LinkedIn connection requests, congratulatory messages from clients, and inevitably family texts, growing increasingly frantic. Detroit News picked up the story. Marcus announced. Local CEO receives unexpected recognition during major merger. They're already calling for interviews. Schedule them for tomorrow. Today we finish the job. But the universe wasn't done with its revelations. Whitney appeared on the podium, introduced as Chen Technologies' new director of strategic partnerships. As we move forward, she said smoothly, we'll be partnering with companies that share our values of innovation and authenticity. Executive Aviation Services represents exactly the kind of partnership we're seeking. A company that lets excellence speak louder than connections. The camera found Jason again. His face had progressed from purple to an alarming shade of white. Madison stood beside him, her perfect composure cracking as she presumably processed that her father had just endorsed the sister-in-law she'd helped humiliate. Phase 2 operations beginning, Derek announced. First return flight requests clearance. Granted, let's get everyone home as smoothly as they arrived. The next 2 hours blurred past in controlled efficiency. Planes departed on schedule. Passengers raved about service and financial networks replayed Richard's endorsement. My phone never stopped buzzing, but I ignored it all. Laura, Sarah appeared at my shoulder. There's a situation in the lobby. On the security monitor, I saw them. Mom, Dad, and 3 people I didn't recognize, one holding what looked like medical equipment. The intervention squad had arrived. They're demanding to see you, Sarah continued. Security's holding them, but Mom's making a scene. She's telling everyone you're having a mental health crisis. I looked at my team, all watching for my reaction. This was the test. Would I let family drama derail our triumph? Tell security to escort them out. If they resist, call the police. We're running a business here, not a therapy session. You sure? I've never been more sure of anything. Sarah nodded and left. On the monitors, I watched security approach my parents. Mom's gestures grew increasingly dramatic. Dad looked uncomfortable, and their hired professionals seemed to be reconsidering their involvement. Last flight departing Mackinac, Patricia reported. Jason and Madison are on board. She hasn't spoken to him since the announcement. He tried to convince the pilot you weren't really the CEO. The pilot laughed at him. Professional response, Captain Williams. Very professional. He just said, Ms. Stevenson signs my paychecks that makes her my CEO, and returned to pre-flight checks. The lobby monitor showed my parents being firmly escorted out. Mom was shouting something about lawsuits and kidnapping, but the security team remained professionally impassive. All aircraft safely returned or en route, Derek announced at 4:30. Operation complete. The command center burst into applause. We'd done it. 30 executives transported flawlessly, 0 delays, 0 complaints, and a public endorsement that would transform our business. Champagne, Marcus suggested. The good stuff, I agreed. We've earned it. As my team celebrated, I stepped back onto the balcony, finally allowing myself to feel the magnitude of what we'd accomplished. My phone showed 183 missed calls, but none of them mattered. Ms. Stevenson. An unfamiliar voice called from the doorway. Martin Chen stood there, camera in hand. I was hoping to interview you for the documentary about success despite family obstacles. Whitney Morrison connected us. She's funding the project. A documentary. About family dynamics and entrepreneurship. Your story contrasted with the wedding footage I captured. If you're willing. The poetry of it all nearly made me laugh. While Jason had plotted my downfall, he'd actually orchestrated his own exposure. Can it wait until tomorrow? My team deserves to celebrate without cameras. Of course. But Laura, what you built here, what you accomplished today, that's the real story. Not the family drama, not the lies. This. He gestured at the command center at my team toasting success. This is what matters. He was right. As the sun set over Detroit, painting the sky in shades of triumph, I realized the revelation was complete. Not because I'd proven Jason wrong or shown my parents their mistake, but because I'd proven myself right. The girl who'd started cleaning planes had just coordinated transportation for a multi-billion-dollar merger. The sister, dismissed as delusional, had received public endorsement from one of America's most respected businessmen. The family embarrassment had built something they couldn't even imagine. My phone rang one more time. Richard Caldwell. "Laura, I hope you were watching." I was. "Thank you for the acknowledgement, though it wasn't necessary." "It was absolutely necessary. Your brother spent the entire flight back trying to convince my daughter you're unstable. She finally told him to shut up or find his own way home." "I'm sorry you're dealing with family drama because of me." "I'm not. It's clarifying. Madison's seeing who she married, and I'm seeing who I want to do business with. Your company exemplifies everything I respect. Their drama just confirms I made the right choice." After we hung up, I rejoined my team. Sarah raised a glass in my direction. "To Laura Stevenson," she said, "who taught us all that the best revenge isn't proving them wrong, it's proving yourself right." We toasted as the last plane touched down safely, as news networks replayed the endorsement, as my family presumably regrouped for their next attack. But they'd already lost. They just didn't know it yet. The grand reveal was complete. Executive Aviation Services was no longer a regional secret, but a nationally recognized success. And somewhere in first class flying back to Detroit, Jason was learning that the sister he'd called garbage had just soared past everything he'd ever dreamed of achieving. The view from 40,000 feet had never looked better. By Wednesday morning, the full impact of Richard Caldwell's endorsement had rippled through Detroit's business community. My office phone hadn't stopped ringing since I'd arrived at 5:30. 3 Fortune 500 companies wanted meetings. 2 international corporations requested proposals, and a documentary crew was setting up in our conference room. The Wall Street Journal wants a statement. Marcus announced juggling 2 phones, and Bloomberg Television is requesting a live interview for this afternoon. Schedule the interview for 3. Written statement to WSJ by noon. I scrolled through my tablet, watching our company valuation climb with each news mention. Also prepped the investor deck. This attention will attract acquisition offers. You thinking of selling? Never. But let them make offers. It validates our worth. My personal phone, silent all morning, suddenly exploded with activity. The family group chat I'd muted months ago showed 97 new messages. Curiosity won, and I scrolled through the meltdown. "Mom, emergency family meeting tonight. This has gone too far." "Dad, Laura's clearly having an episode. That Caldwell man is enabling her delusions." "Jason, I tried to warn Richard, now he's caught up in her fantasy. This is dangerous." "Sarah, maybe we should consider that Laura's telling the truth." "Jason, don't you start. I was there. She doesn't own anything. This is elaborate manipulation." "Mom, Sarah, your cousin is sick. Don't encourage this." The messages grew increasingly frantic as family members who'd seen the news tried to process the cognitive dissonance. Uncle Frank had shared several links to business articles, each one shut down by Jason with increasingly creative explanations. Ms. Stevenson, Martin Chen appeared in my doorway with his small crew. "Ready when you are." The documentary interview was scheduled for the small conference room away from the chaos of daily operations. Martin had prepared thoughtfully his questions, probing but respectful. "Tell me about the night your brother uninvited you from his wedding." I recounted the family dinner, keeping my tone factual rather than bitter. The camera captured it all. The pain transformed into purpose, the rejection refined into resolve. "When did you decide not to tell them about your success?" "Around year 3. Every achievement I shared was diminished or dismissed. Jason would take credit, saying his connections had helped. Mom would worry I was overextending. Dad would suggest I should be grateful for having any job at all. Eventually, I realized their validation was a currency I didn't need. The wedding footage shows Jason calling you delusional, claiming you have mental health issues. How does that feel?" "Like projection. He's so invested in his version of reality that actual reality threatens him. That's not my problem to solve." We were mid-interview when Marcus knocked urgently. "Sorry to interrupt, we have a situation in the lobby." The monitors showed chaos. My parents, Jason Madison, and several other family members had somehow gotten past the initial security checkpoint. They stood in our marble lobby, Jason gesturing wildly at our company logo, while Madison filmed everything on her phone. "This is it." Jason's voice carried through the security feed. "This is where she comes to play pretend. Watch, they'll all act like she's in charge. It's a group delusion." Our receptionist, Keisha, maintained professional calm. "Sir, I need you to sign in or leave. This is a place of business." "I'm not signing into my sister's fantasy. Where is she? Where's Laura?" "News. Ms. Stevenson is in a meeting. If you'd like to schedule—" "Ms. Stevenson." Jason laughed maniacally. "She's got you all trained well. How much is she paying you to play along?" Security was already moving to intervene, but I held up a hand. "Martin, would you like some additional footage for your documentary?" His eyes lit up. "Absolutely." "Then let's go meet my family." We took the executive elevator to the lobby, the camera crew following discreetly. As the doors opened, I heard Mom's voice. "This is what we mean. She's convinced all these people she's someone important. It's a shared psychosis." "Good morning," I said, calmly stepping into view. The lobby fell silent. Jason's face cycled through emotions like a slot machine before settling on rage. "There she is." He pointed dramatically. The pretend CEO in her pretend office with her pretend employees. "Jason," Madison hissed, "people are staring. Let them stare. They should know they're enabling mental illness." I turned to Martin's camera. "This is my brother, Jason, my parents, Robert and Helen, and my sister-in-law, Madison. They've come here today because they believe I'm delusional, that this company I built doesn't exist, that the jets we operate are fantasy, that the endorsement from Richard Caldwell yesterday was, what did you call it, Jason, an elaborate hoax." "You fooled him somehow," Jason insisted. "Probably hired actors, rented planes for a day. This whole thing is smoke and mirrors." "Mr. Stevenson," Keisha interrupted politely, "would you like to see our FAA certifications, our business licenses, our tax records going back 9 years? Fake all fake." But his voice cracked uncertainty creeping in. Whitney Morrison chose that moment to walk through our doors. Dressed impeccably in a business suit, she looked every inch the corporate executive she'd become. Laura, perfect timing. "I wanted to discuss the Chen Technologies contract." She stopped taking in the scene. "Oh, the family intervention Madison mentioned. Is this really happening in your corporate lobby?" Madison turned crimson. "Whitney, what are you doing here?" "Business. With the CEO of Executive Aviation Services, the very real, very successful CEO." She turned to Jason. "You know your obsession with denying your sister's success is bordering on pathological. Have you considered therapy?" "This isn't happening," Jason muttered. "You're all in on it. She's paying you." "Paying me?" Whitney laughed. "Jason, my family's worth $800 million. What exactly could Laura pay me to lie?" The crack in Jason's certainty became a chasm. He looked around the lobby, at the marble floors, the modern art, the employees moving efficiently through their day. The cognitive dissonance was visibly painful. "Mom." He turned desperately to our parents. "You said she was sick. You said this was all delusion." Mom clutched her purse tighter. "It has to be. Our Laura cleans planes. She doesn't. This isn't—" "I used to clean planes," I corrected gently, 9 years ago. But none of you ever asked what I did after that. You assumed, and Jason reinforced those assumptions because it made him feel superior. "But you never corrected us," Dad accused. "I tried. Remember when I told you about my first contract? You said I should be careful not to get in over my head. When I mentioned buying planes, you worried I was being scammed. Every success I shared, you found a way to diminish. So I stopped sharing." "This is gaslighting," Jason exploded. "You're rewriting history. Tell them about your studio apartment, your 10-year-old Honda." I sold the Honda 5 years ago. The studio apartment was 8 years ago. You're stuck in a version of me that hasn't existed for nearly a decade. Martin's camera captured everything. The family who'd built their identity around being better than me crumbling as reality refused to match their narrative. "Mr. Caldwell warned me about you," Madison said quietly to Jason. "On the flight back, he said you'd spent 2 years lying about your sister trying to sabotage her success. I didn't believe him." "I wasn't lying. She's the liar. This is all—" "Jason." Madison's voice was ice. "My father doesn't make mistakes about people. If he says your sister runs this company, she runs this company, which means you've been lying to me, to my family, to everyone." "Baby, you don't understand." "I understand perfectly. You were so threatened by your sister's success that you tried to destroy her reputation rather than celebrate it. What kind of man does that?" Mom stepped forward, her face a mask of confusion and growing anger. "Laura, if this is all true, why didn't you tell us?" "I just explained why." "No, I mean, the company, the money, family helps family. You should have included us." And there it was. Not an apology for their treatment, not recognition of their mistakes, but anger that I hadn't shared the wealth they'd told me I'd never achieve. "Like you included me in Jason's wedding." "That's different. You're being petty." "No, Mom. I'm being clear. You chose Jason over me repeatedly. You believed his lies over my truth consistently. You treated me as less than constantly. Now you want the benefits of a relationship you destroyed?" "We're your family," Dad interjected. "Uncle Frank is family. He stood by me. Sarah is family. She defended me. Your relatives who happen to share DNA but never shared respect." Jason's phone rang. He answered desperately, probably hoping for escape. His face went white as he listened. "That was my firm," he said numbly. "I'm under review. Someone sent them a video of me at the wedding talking about using my connection to Richard to get insider information. They're suspending me pending investigation." "I wonder who could have done that," Whitney mused innocently. The lobby had filled with employees pretending to work while actually watching the drama. I needed to end this before it became a circus. "Security, please escort my relatives out. If they return, call the police." "Laura," Mom shrieked, "you can't throw us out. We're your parents." "You're trespassers in my place of business. Leave with dignity or leave in handcuffs. Your choice." Jason made one last attempt. "This isn't over. I'll prove you're fraud. I'll hire investigators." "Investigate away. Every record is public. Every certification is real. Every success is documented. While you're investigating, I'll be running my company." Security moved in professionally but firmly guiding my family toward the exit. Madison hung back, separating herself from the group. "Laura," she said quietly, "I owe you an apology. I believed Jason's version because it was easier than questioning someone I thought I loved. That was wrong." "What are you saying?" Jason demanded. "I'm saying I want a divorce. My father was right about you. You're a small man who tears others down to feel tall." She walked out, leaving Jason standing slack-jawed as security guided him away. The last I saw of my family, they were huddled on the sidewalk, apparently arguing about whose fault this all was. "Well," Martin said, lowering his camera. "That was certainly dramatic." "That was closure," I corrected. 9 years overdue." Whitney approached her expression sympathetic. "You okay?" "Better than okay. They came here to force their narrative on my reality. They left faced with a truth they can't deny anymore." "So what now?" "Now I have a Bloomberg interview at 3 a company to run and a life to live without people who never saw my worth." I turned to my employees who'd witnessed the whole scene. Shows over everyone. Back to work. We have an empire to build. As the lobby returned to normal, I felt lighter than I had in years. The family meltdown was complete. The truth was undeniable, and I was finally free from seeking validation from people incapable of giving it. My phone buzzed with a text from Uncle Frank. "Saw the news. Proud of you, kiddo. Your grandma would be too. Family isn't about blood, it's about who shows up. He was right. My real family, my employees, my mentors, my true supporters, had been here all along. The rest were just relatives, and after today's performance, they weren't even that anymore. Thursday evening arrived with an unexpected storm system, matching the tempest brewing in my family. I'd spent the day in back-to-back interviews, each reporter more fascinated by the secret CEO angle than the last. The Bloomberg appearance had gone viral, particularly the clip where I'd said, "Success is the best response to those who bet against you." I was reviewing contracts in my home office when the doorman called. "Miss Stevenson, your parents and brother are here. They're quite insistent." "They're not on the approved visitor list, Thomas." "Yes, ma'am, but your mother is quite emotional. She says it's about family reconciliation." I sighed. Running from this confrontation would only delay the inevitable. "Send them up, but stay alert. If I call down, I need security immediately." 10 minutes later, my doorbell rang with the weight of years of dysfunction behind it. I opened the door to find my parents and Jason all looking somewhat diminished from yesterday's lobby performance. "May we come in?" Mom asked, her usual commanding tone replaced with something almost humble. I stepped aside wordlessly, watching them take in my penthouse. The floor-to-ceiling windows showcasing Detroit's skyline, the original artwork, the obvious success they'd denied existed. "This is impressive," Dad admitted, studying a sculpture I'd bought to celebrate my first $1 million contract. "Why are you here?" They settled uncomfortably on my leather sofa, the same one where I'd cried after being uninvited from Jason's wedding. The irony wasn't lost on me. "We need to talk," Mom began. "About everything. About the lies, the misunderstandings." "You mean Jason's lies that you chose to believe?" Jason flinched. His usual bravado had evaporated, leaving someone I barely recognized. I need to explain." "Then explain." He rubbed his face, looking older than his 32 years. "Madison filed for divorce this morning. Her father called my firm, told them I was a liability. I've been terminated effective immediately." I waited, offering no sympathy. "The thing is," he continued, voice cracking, "I knew. Part of me always knew you were telling the truth about your success, but admitting it meant acknowledging that my little sister had surpassed me in every way that mattered." "So you chose to destroy my reputation instead?" "I was the golden child, the one who was supposed to succeed. You were supposed to stay in my shadow. When you didn't, when you started building something, I couldn't handle it." "That's your explanation, ego." "It's not an excuse," he said quickly. "Just the truth. Every milestone you achieved felt like a personal attack on my identity, so I convinced myself and everyone else that it couldn't be real." Mom shifted uncomfortably. "We believed him because it was easier than accepting we'd failed you." "Failed me." "We poured everything into Jason," Dad admitted. "Time, money, attention, belief. When he struggled, we made excuses. When you succeeded, we barely noticed. Acknowledging your achievements meant acknowledging our favoritism. And that was too hard." My voice was steady, but my hands trembled. "We're not good parents," Mom said quietly. "We played favorites, chose sides, created a dynamic where Jason felt entitled and you felt invisible. Then we punished you for refusing to stay invisible." The admission hung in the air like a confession at trial. Part of me wanted to rage, to list every hurt, every dismissal, every moment they'd chosen him over me. But what was the point? They knew. They'd always known. "What do you want from me?" I asked finally. "Forgiveness," Jason said immediately. "A second chance. Maybe a job I know that's audacious after everything, but I'm facing bankruptcy. Madison's taking everything." I laughed, sharp and bitter. "A job you spent years telling people I was delusional, and now you want me to employ you. I know I don't deserve it." "You're right. You don't." I moved to the window, needing distance. "Do you understand what you did? It wasn't just the wedding humiliation or the lies. You actively tried to sabotage my contracts. Richard Caldwell told me about the spreadsheets, the recommendations to use other companies. You tried to destroy my livelihood because it threatened your ego. I was wrong. You were cruel. There's a difference. Dad stood approaching cautiously. Laura, we're not asking you to forget. We're asking for a chance to make amends, to rebuild something. Rebuild what we never had anything to rebuild from. You've treated me as lesser my entire life. The only thing that's changed is that now my success is too big to deny. That's not true, Mom protested. We love you. You love the idea of a daughter who fits your expectations. You never loved who I actually am. The girl who worked 3 jobs during college, you called her stubborn. The woman who bought her first plane, you called her reckless. The CEO who built an empire, you called her delusional. People can change, Jason interjected. Can they? Because 48 hours ago, you were in my lobby screaming that I was mentally ill. The only thing that's changed is that your lies have consequences now. My phone buzzed, Sarah texting, "Security footage from yesterday has 3 million views. News channels want statements." I showed them the text. Your meltdown has gone viral. The whole world saw who you really are, and you want me to pretend it didn't happen. We're family, Mom said desperately. No, Uncle Frank is family. He defended me when you attacked. Sarah is family. She chose truth over comfort. Martin Chen is more family than you. He believed in my story when you were denying it. You're just people who happen to share my DNA. So that's it. Jason's voice turned bitter. You get your revenge and walk away. Revenge. I whirled on him. You think this is revenge? I didn't pursue success to spite you. I didn't build this company to prove you wrong. I did it because I had dreams bigger than your small minds could comprehend. You're not important enough to be my motivation. That hit harder than any anger could have. Jason physically recoiled from the truth that he'd been irrelevant to my success. But we're important enough for you to keep secrets from... Mom accused. You taught me to keep secrets. Every time I shared an achievement, you diminished it. Every time I expressed an ambition, you discouraged it. You trained me to succeed in silence because my voice threatened Jason's volume. We made mistakes. You made choices, daily deliberate choices to value one child over another. And now when the overlooked child has something you want, money, status, connections, suddenly you want reconciliation. That's not why we're here, Dad protested. Isn't it Jason needs a job? You need to save face after yesterday's viral humiliation. Where's the accountability? Where's the genuine recognition of the damage you did? Silence stretched between us, filled with years of unspoken truths. You're right, Jason said finally, about all of it. I sabotaged you because I'm weak. I lied because I'm insecure. I tried to destroy you because your success highlighted my mediocrity. I don't deserve forgiveness, and I definitely don't deserve a job. It was the first honest thing he'd said in years. I know you don't believe us, Mom added, but seeing you yesterday, seeing what you built despite us, we're proud of you. Belatedly, inadequately, but genuinely proud. Your pride means nothing to me now. I needed it when I was 7 and brought home perfect grades. I needed it when I was 19 and working nights to pay for school. I needed it when I was 25 and signing my first major contract. Now your pride is as irrelevant as your doubt. They stood to leave defeat written on their faces. At the door, Jason turned back. For what it's worth, you're the strongest person I know. I spent so much energy trying to keep you down because somewhere deep inside, I always knew you'd fly higher than I ever could. After they left, I stood in my empty penthouse surrounded by the trappings of success they'd never believed I'd achieve. The confrontation I dreaded for years was over, and I felt empty. Not sad, not angry, just empty. My phone rang, Uncle Frank. Heard about the family meeting, he said without preamble. You okay? I don't know. I said everything I needed to say, but it doesn't feel like closure. Because closure isn't something they can give you. It's something you give yourself. You built a life despite them. That's your closure. He was right. My closure wasn't in their apologies or recognition. It was in the company I'd built, the people I'd helped, the dreams I'd achieved without their belief. Uncle Frank, thank you for being the family I needed. Always, kiddo. Your grandma would be proud. Hell, I'm proud. Now go live your life. The best revenge is a life well lived, and yours is just getting started. As I hung up, I realized the confrontation had given me one thing: freedom. Not from anger or hurt. Those would take time to heal. But freedom from seeking their approval, from hoping for their understanding, from needing their validation. They'd shown me who they were consistently. Today, I'd finally shown them who I am, someone who succeeded not because of them, not in spite of them, but entirely without them. And that more than any revenge was the ultimate triumph. 2 weeks after the confrontation, March had given way to April, and with it came a cascade of consequences I couldn't have orchestrated better if I'd tried. I sat in my office reviewing the Forbes article about executive aviation services when Marcus knocked with barely contained excitement. "You need to see this," he said, pulling up a news feed on the conference room screen. The headline read, "Caldwell Industries Cuts Ties with Stevenson Consulting After Ethics Violations." The article detailed how Jason's firm had conducted an internal investigation, finding multiple instances of him attempting to leverage his connection to Richard Caldwell for insider information. The termination was just the beginning. They were pursuing legal action to recover damages. There's more. Marcus continued, switching screens. Madison Caldwell gave an interview to Detroit Magazine. The video showed Madison polished as ever, but with a steel in her eyes I'd never seen before. "I married a man who spent 2 years lying about his own sister's achievements. If he could maintain such an elaborate deception about family, what else was he lying about?" The interviewer leaned forward. "You're suggesting there were other deceptions." "I'm not suggesting, I'm stating. Jason Stevenson presented himself as a successful consultant with executive-level responsibilities. In reality, he was a mid-level analyst drowning in debt. He lied about his position, his salary, his connections, everything." "And you discovered this, how?" "My father's investigation after the merger announcement, when Jason tried to sabotage his own sister's company, a company my father had personally vetted. Dad decided to investigate Jason himself. What he found was illuminating." The interview continued with Madison detailing Jason's financial deceptions, his attempts to manipulate her trust fund, and his systematic campaign to isolate her from anyone who might reveal his lies, including me. The saddest part, Madison concluded, is that his sister is genuinely successful. Brilliant, actually. If he'd celebrated her instead of trying to destroy her, he might have learned something. My phone buzzed with a text from Whitney. "Did you see Madison's interview? She's not holding back. Also thought you should know. Jason's been reaching out to everyone in our network begging for job referrals. No one's responding." I set the phone aside as Patricia entered. "The Chen Technologies contract just expanded. They want us to handle all Asian Pacific routes. That's an additional $12 million annually. Coordinate with Derek on pilot assignments. We'll need to hire for the expansion. Already posted the positions. Also," she smiled, "someone interesting applied for our entry-level management program." She handed me a resume. Jason Stevenson. Education inflated. Experience exaggerated. References notably missing Richard Caldwell or anyone from Madison's circle. At the bottom, a handwritten note. "I know I don't deserve consideration, but I need this. Please." "What do you want to do?" Patricia asked. "Process it like any other application. If he meets our minimum requirements, he gets a standard interview. No special treatment, positive or negative." "You're considering hiring him." "I'm considering treating him like any other applicant. That's more fairness than he ever showed me." She left, and I returned to the Forbes article. They'd interviewed several employees, all praising the company culture, the opportunities for advancement, the CEO who'd started where they did. Harold, my first mentor, was quoted, "I knew Laura would build something special. She saw potential where others saw problems." Another knock. Sarah entered with an envelope. This just arrived by courier. Inside a formal letter on Stevenson family letterhead. Apparently they had letterhead now. Mom's careful script filled the page. Dear Laura, your father and I have been reflecting on our failures as parents. We've started family therapy to understand how we created such a toxic dynamic. The therapist suggested we write letters of accountability, not asking for forgiveness, just acknowledging our actions. We failed you. From childhood through present day, we consistently chose favoritism over fairness. We dismissed your achievements while inflating Jason's. We created a competition where there should have been collaboration. Worse, when you succeeded despite us, we chose to believe lies rather than celebrate truth. We participated in a campaign to discredit you that culminated in public humiliation, ours deservedly. This letter isn't seeking reconciliation. It's simply acknowledging that we were wrong, you were right, and your success is entirely your own achievement. We're proud of who you've become, even though we have no right to that pride. If you ever find space in your life for us again, we'll be grateful. If not, we understand. Some bridges once burned can't be rebuilt. Mom and Dad. I read it twice, feeling something. Not forgiveness, not yet, but maybe the beginning of understanding that they were finally seeing themselves clearly. Ms. Stevenson. Keisha's voice came through the intercom. Richard Caldwell is here. Says it's urgent. Richard entered looking uncharacteristically flustered. Laura, I apologize for dropping by unannounced, but we have a situation. What's wrong? Jason has been shopping a tell-all book proposal about you. My Sister, the Secret Millionaire, a story of deception. He's claiming you manipulated everyone, that the company is built on fraud, that you're dangerous. My blood ran cold. Publishers are interested. We're interested. Until my lawyers contacted them with documentation of Jason's lies, his termination for ethics violations, and Madison's divorce filing citing fraud. No reputable publisher will touch him now, but he'll self-publish or find a blog. Already handled. Whitney and I have prepared a preemptive strike. He handed me a tablet showing a press release. We're announcing Executive Aviation's expansion, including your full background story. Every major outlet will have the real narrative before Jason can spread more lies. The release was perfect. Professional but personal, highlighting the journey from night shift cleaner to CEO without demonizing my family. Whitney had added a quote, Laura Stevenson represents the best of American entrepreneurship, someone who built success through determination rather than connections. Additionally, Richard continued, I'm recommending EAS to every CEO in my network. By the time Jason tries his smear campaign, you'll be untouchable. Why are you doing all this? Because you're good at what you do. Because you treated me with respect when you had every reason to be bitter about my connection to Jason. And because I can't stand bullies, especially when they're family. That evening, I hosted a dinner for my real family. Uncle Frank, Sarah, my leadership team. The people who'd believed in me when believing wasn't easy. Martin Chen brought rough cuts of his documentary now titled Blood and Business When Family Becomes Opposition. The network wants to fast-track it, he explained. Your story resonates. People are tired of nepotism winning. They want to see merit triumph. Just tell it honestly, I requested. No villains, no heroes, just truth. As we toasted the company's expansion, my phone lit up with notifications. The press release had dropped, and the business world was responding. Interview requests, partnership proposals, speaking engagements at major universities. You realize what's happening, Uncle Frank said quietly. The tables haven't just turned. They've been flipped entirely. Jason's lost everything he valued, job, marriage, reputation. You've gained everything he said you couldn't have. I didn't want him to lose everything, I admitted. I just wanted him to stop trying to destroy me. Sometimes those are the same thing. He defined himself by being above you. Without that delusion, he has to figure out who he really is. Sarah raised her glass. To Laura, who showed us that the best revenge isn't destroying your enemies. It's building something so magnificent they destroy themselves trying to tear it down. We drank to success earned, rather than given to families chosen, rather than assigned. Outside Detroit glittered with possibility, and for the first time in my life, I felt truly free from the weight of others' expectations. The girl who'd cleaned planes now owned them. The sister deemed embarrassing was now untouchable. The family failure had become the only real success story the Stevensons had ever produced. The tables hadn't just turned. They'd been completely rebuilt, and I was sitting at the head of my own. 6 months later, October painted Michigan in brilliant reds and golds, a perfect backdrop for Executive Aviation Service's 5th annual charity gala. What had started as a small scholarship fund had grown into a full foundation providing aviation training to underprivileged youth across the Midwest. I stood on the ballroom stage at the Renaissance Center, looking out at 500 guests who'd paid premium prices to support our cause. Industry leaders, politicians, celebrities, people Jason would have killed to network with all here because they believed in our mission. When I started cleaning planes at 19, I began my speech. I never imagined I'd one day own them. But someone believed in me. Harold Morrison, who saw potential where others saw just another kid with a mop. Tonight we continue his legacy by opening doors for young people who've been told their dreams are too big. The audience erupted in applause. In the front row sat my scholarship recipients, 23 young men and women wearing their flight school uniforms with pride. Melissa Hartford, my first scholarship winner, was now a certified pilot working for our company. As I detailed the foundation's expansion, new partnerships with major airlines' internship programs, full-ride scholarships to aviation universities, I noticed movement at the back of the ballroom. Jason, in an ill-fitting suit, standing uncertainly by the door. He'd lost weight, his former swagger replaced by something almost humble. We'd had minimal contact since his failed book attempt, though Sarah mentioned he'd been working warehouse jobs while fighting legal battles from his former firm. I continued my speech announcing that Richard Caldwell and Chen Technologies were doubling their contribution, bringing our fundraising total to $8 million. The crowd celebrated as I introduced Whitney, now the foundation's board president. Laura Stevenson changed my perspective on success, Whitney told the audience. She showed me that true achievement isn't about climbing ladders others built, but building your own and helping others climb with you. After the formal program, I worked the room discussing expansion plans with investors, sharing stories with other CEOs who'd built from nothing. The mayor stopped by to discuss our new job training initiative. A Fortune reporter wanted to feature us in their Companies That Care issue. Laura. I turned to find Jason closer now, but maintaining respectful distance. The confident consultant was gone, replaced by someone who'd learned humility the hard way. Jason, I wasn't expecting you. I bought a ticket. Well scraped together money for a ticket. I wanted to support the foundation. He paused, clearly struggling. And to see what you built. Really see it without my ego in the way. And what do you see? He looked around the ballroom, at the successful people celebrating my vision, at the scholarship recipients whose lives were changing, at the empire I'd built from nothing. I see my little sister changing the world while I wasted years trying to keep her small. His voice cracked. I see the person I could have learned from if I hadn't been so threatened. I see my biggest failure, not losing my job or marriage, but losing you. You didn't lose me, Jason. You threw me away. I know. He pulled out an envelope worn from handling. I've been carrying this for months, trying to find the courage to give it to you. Inside was a single page, his handwriting more careful than I'd ever seen. Laura, I won't ask for forgiveness. Some things are unforgivable. I won't make excuses. There are none. I just want you to know that watching you succeed despite my sabotage has been the most humbling education of my life. You asked once if people can change. I didn't think so then. Now, working jobs I once mocked, living in a studio apartment like you once did, I'm learning. Every day I clean office buildings, I think of you at 19, mopping planes while dreaming bigger. Every rejection I face, I remember the hundreds I caused you. I'm in therapy, real therapy, not the performative kind. Learning why I needed to diminish you to feel valuable. Understanding that my identity was so fragile, your strength felt like an attack. This isn't a plea for reconciliation. It's just acknowledgement. You were always the strong one, the smart one, the brave one. I was just too weak to see it. Your brother, if you'll still allow that, Jason. I folded the letter carefully. What do you want me to do with this? Nothing. Everything. Whatever gives you peace. I just needed you to know that I know. That the delusions were mine, the mental illness was mine, the failure was mine. Your success was never my story to tell. Before I could respond, Uncle Frank appeared. Laura the mayor wants to discuss... Oh, Jason. Uncle Frank. Jason said quietly. I heard you've been on the foundation board from the beginning. Thank you for standing by her. I didn't stand by her. I stood with her. There's a difference. Uncle Frank's tone was firm but not cruel. Standing by implies she needed support. Standing with means recognizing she was already standing tall. Jason nodded, accepting the correction. I should go. This is your night, Laura. I just needed you to see that I finally see. He started to leave, then turned back. For what it's worth, that entry-level job I applied for, I withdrew my application. Not because I don't need it, but because I haven't earned the right to benefit from what you built. Maybe someday, if I do the work, I'll deserve to reapply. Until then, I'll keep learning humility from the ground up. Literally. After he left, Uncle Frank squeezed my shoulder. You okay? Yeah, it's strange seeing him broken down like that. He's not broken. He's being rebuilt. Sometimes we have to demolish the false foundation before we can build something real. Whitney joined us having watched the exchange. That took courage, him coming here. It took more courage for Laura to build this while he tried to tear her down, Uncle Frank countered. Both can be true, I said. Jason's learning courage. I learned it years ago because I had to. Maybe that's the difference between us. I was forced to grow strong. He was allowed to stay weak. The evening continued with dancing, more donations, and countless conversations about the future. Richard Caldwell announced that Executive Aviation was handling Chen Technologies' upcoming IPO roadshow. The governor's office wanted to partner on a statewide aviation training program. Netflix was interested in adapting Martin's documentary into a limited series. As the gala wound down, I stood on the terrace overlooking the Detroit River. The city lights reflected on the water, creating paths of illumination in the darkness. Sarah joined me now, my VP of Operations, wearing the confidence success had given her. Remember 2 years ago, she asked, when you were banned from Jason's wedding? Feels like a lifetime ago. In a way it was. That version of you, the one still hoping for family approval, she's gone. This version... She gestured at the successful CEO, the philanthropist, the woman who'd built an empire. This is who you were always meant to be. Inside, the band played Fly Me to the Moon, and I smiled at the aptness. I'd flown so far beyond the moon, beyond their expectations, beyond even my own dreams. Ms. Stevenson. Melissa Hartford appeared, still wearing her pilot wings. I wanted to thank you again. 2 years ago, I was a kid from the wrong side of Detroit with impossible dreams. Now I'm flying jets because you saw something in me nobody else did. You saw it in yourself first, I corrected. I just provided the runway. As the evening ended, I helped load leftover food for donation to local shelters. Some CEOs would consider it beneath them, but I remembered being 19 and hungry, saving every penny for my dreams. Success hadn't erased those memories. It had transformed them into purpose. Uncle Frank drove me home, classical music filling comfortable silence. As we pulled up to my building, he spoke. Your grandmother would have loved tonight. Seeing you use success to lift others, building the ladder you had to climb alone. That's her legacy living through you. I wish she could have seen it. She did see it, kiddo. She saw it in you before you saw it in yourself. That's what real family does. They see your light when you're still learning to shine. In my penthouse, I placed Jason's letter in a drawer with other milestones. My first contract, the Forbes article photos from tonight's gala. Not forgiveness, not yet, but acknowledgement that people could change even if it took losing everything to find themselves. Tomorrow would bring new challenges, new opportunities, new heights to reach. But tonight, I'd celebrated not just success, but significance. The girl who'd cleaned planes hadn't just learned to fly, she'd taught others to soar. And that was better than any revenge, any vindication, any family approval could ever be. That was legacy. That was purpose. That was the beginning of something bigger than personal triumph. That was lifting while climbing, and the view from here was spectacular. 1 year after the charity gala, I stood in the boardroom of Stevenson Industries, no longer just executive aviation services, but a full aerospace conglomerate. We'd acquired 2 smaller companies, expanded internationally, and were preparing for an IPO that Goldman Sachs valued at $2 billion. The final numbers are staggering, our CFO reported. We're looking at a personal net worth that would put you on the Forbes 400 list. I nodded, but my attention was on the letter that had arrived that morning, not from family, but from the Michigan Business Review naming me CEO of the Year. The ceremony was next week, a black tie affair at the Fox Theater, where Detroit's elite would gather to celebrate success. There's one more thing, Marcus said carefully. Your parents have requested tickets to the ceremony. Apparently they've been following your success and want to be there for this recognition. And Jason, working as a night janitor at Ford headquarters. Sarah says he's been promoted to shift supervisor. He's also been volunteering at homeless shelters, teaching job skills to people trying to rebuild their lives. The irony was perfect. Jason finally understanding the dignity in the work he'd once mocked, while our parents suddenly wanted to claim proximity to success they'd denied existed. Tell them no, I decided. They made their choice at Jason's wedding. They don't get to choose differently now that the whole world is watching. That evening, I sat with my leadership team planning the IPO roadshow. 30 cities, 50 presentations showcasing the company that started with a mop and a dream. Whitney had agreed to join our board of directors. Richard Caldwell was leading the investment round. We need to discuss something, Patricia said. The documentary Martin made, it won 3 Emmys and is nominated for an Oscar. He wants you at the Academy Awards. I laughed. A janitor at the Oscars. Jason would have an aneurysm. Former janitor, Uncle Frank corrected, entering with champagne. Current revolutionary. There's a difference. We toasted to the IPO, to the journey to proving that merit mattered more than name. The office windows reflected Detroit's skyline, a city that understood rebuilding from ashes. Ms. Stevenson, Keisha, appeared. There's someone here, says it's urgent. Madison Caldwell, she'd kept the name professionally, entered looking every inch the powerful attorney she'd become since the divorce. She now ran the legal department at her father's company, having proven herself beyond being someone's wife. Laura, I'm sorry to interrupt. I have information you need to know. She pulled out documents. Jason's been served papers. The old firm is suing him for $2 million in damages. He can't pay, obviously. They're threatening criminal charges. Why are you telling me this? Because despite everything, I know you care. Also, she hesitated, he's been different. The arrogance is gone, replaced by someone actually trying to make amends. He volunteers at the same shelter where one of your scholarship recipients used to live. He's been using his story, the fall from grace, to teach others about humility and redemption. I looked at the papers. The lawsuit was devastating, designed to destroy what little Jason had rebuilt. The firm wanted blood, wanting to make an example of him. What are you asking me to do? Nothing. Everything. I don't know. Madison sat down suddenly, looking tired. I spent 2 years married to a man who lied about everything. But lately, watching him work jobs, he used to mock seeing him actually help people instead of using them. Maybe people can change. You're considering taking him back? God, no. That bridge is ash. But I'm considering that maybe he's becoming someone worth knowing for the first time in his life. And I thought you should know before they destroy him completely. After she left, I sat alone in my office city lights painting patterns on the floor. The CEO of the Year award gleamed on my desk, a testament to everything I'd built despite them, or because of them. The line had blurred over time. I called my attorney. I need to set up a meeting with Stevenson and Associates about their lawsuit against Jason Stevenson. You're intervening. I'm considering it. Set the meeting. 2 days later, I sat across from Jason's former partners, men who'd once dismissed me as the janitor sister, now seeking my intervention. We'll drop the lawsuit, I said simply. In exchange, you'll provide a neutral reference for Jason's future employment. No admission of wrongdoing on either side. Why would we do that? Because I'm about to take my company public at a $2 billion valuation. Because every major corporation in the Midwest uses our services. Because making an enemy of me over a vindictive lawsuit would be unwise. They exchanged glances. You're protecting him after what he did to you. I'm protecting my company from the distraction of a messy public lawsuit involving my brother. This is business, not personal. But it was personal in ways I couldn't fully articulate. Not forgiveness, not yet. But recognition that destroying Jason completely wouldn't heal what he'd broken. Only building something better could do that. The night before the CEO of the Year ceremony, Jason called. First time in over a year. I heard what you did with the lawsuit, he said without preamble. Thank you. I didn't do it for you. I know, but thank you anyway. He paused. I also heard Mom and Dad want to attend your ceremony. For what it's worth, I told them they haven't earned that right, that showing up for your success after abandoning you during struggle is just another form of using you. You told them that someone needed to. I spent 30 years being their golden child while they tarnished you. Least I can do is tell them the truth now. Another pause. I won't be there either. Not because I don't want to celebrate you, but because your moment shouldn't be about our family drama. It should be about what you built. What are you doing that night? Working. Got a shift at the shelter teaching resume writing. Turns out I'm good at helping people package themselves honestly instead of inflating their worth. The growth was real hard-won through loss and humility. Jason, after the IPO settles after the dust clears. Maybe we could have coffee. Not as CEO and applicant, not as success and failure, just as siblings figuring out if there's anything worth salvaging. Silence then. I'd like that, but only when you're ready. I've got time. Turns out rebuilding yourself from foundation up takes years. You'd know better than anyone. The night of the ceremony, I stood on stage at the Fox Theater accepting the CEO of the Year award. The audience, fellow CEOs, government officials, business leaders, gave a standing ovation. In my speech, I talked about second chances, about building ladders for others, about success, meaning nothing if you climbed alone. 9 years ago, I was cleaning planes at night, I concluded. Tonight, I run a company that employs thousands. The difference wasn't talent or luck or connections. It was people who believed in me when I was nobody. Harold Morrison, who sold me his contracts. David Chen, who took a chance on expansion. Uncle Frank, who stood by me when Blood Family walked away. Success isn't a solo flight. It's a formation lifting each other higher. In the audience, Uncle Frank wiped tears. Sarah beamed with pride. Whitney and Richard applauded enthusiastically. Martin filmed everything for his follow-up documentary, My Chosen Family celebrating what we'd built together. Outside the theater, protesters held signs, "Fair wages for aviation workers." I stopped recognizing some faces, people from my old cleaning crew. Instead of avoiding them, I approached. "You're right," I told the surprised group. "Let's set up a meeting. If executive aviation is going public, our workers should share in that success." The lead protester, someone I'd worked beside years ago, stared in shock. "You're serious?" Every person cleaning our planes deserves what I got, a chance to build more. Let's discuss employee stock options, better wages, advancement programs. Real change, not just promises. As my motorcade pulled away, I saw a figure in a janitor's uniform watching from across the street. Jason on break from his shift, seeing his sister choose justice over mere success. He raised his hand in a small wave, and I returned it. The final reckoning wasn't about revenge or vindication. It was about becoming someone who could transform pain into purpose, rejection into revolution, dismissal into an empire that lifted others. Tomorrow, Executive Aviation would begin trading on the New York Stock Exchange. The girl who'd been called a garbage collector would ring the opening bell, surrounded not by the family who'd failed her, but by the family she'd found. And somewhere in Detroit, a former golden child was learning humility, one floor at a time, while his sister soared in skies he'd tried to keep her from reaching. The reckoning was complete. The future was unlimited, and the view from 40,000 feet had never been clearer. 2 years after ringing the opening bell at NYSE, I stood in the garden of my grandmother's old house, now transformed into the Morrison Stevenson Center for Youth Aviation. Uncle Frank had helped me purchase and renovate it, turning the place where I'd last felt unconditionally loved into a beacon of hope for others. Welcome to graduation day. I addressed the crowd of 200, 50 young adults in pilot uniforms, their families beaming with pride, industry leaders who'd become partners in our mission. The center had grown from a scholarship program to a full academy, providing everything from pilot training to aerospace engineering degrees. Melissa Hartford, now our lead instructor, introduced each graduate. Kids from neighborhoods written off by society, young adults who'd been told to be realistic about their dreams, former foster children who'd aged out of the system with nowhere to go. Each one proof that talent existed everywhere. Opportunity was what was scarce. When I started this journey 15 years ago, I continued my speech. I was angry. Angry at family who didn't believe in me, at systems that valued connections over competence, at a world that saw my dreams as delusions. That anger fueled my climb, but it wasn't until I transformed it into purpose that I truly soared. In the audience, I spotted familiar faces. Sarah, now president of our aviation division. Whitney, whose foundation had merged with ours to create nationwide impact. Richard Caldwell, whose investment had launched our international expansion. Martin Chen, documenting our 5th anniversary for his latest project. And in the back row, almost hidden behind a pillar, Jason. He'd earned his way back slowly. First as a volunteer, then part-time instructor teaching life skills, now full-time coordinator of our Second Chance program for adults rebuilding after failure. Not because he was my brother, but because he'd become genuinely gifted at helping people rise from ashes. Success isn't about proving doubters wrong, I continued. It's about proving believers right. The believers might be few at first. In my case, an elderly man who sold me his cleaning contracts, an uncle who stood by me, a grandmother who saw my light before I did. But each success creates more believers, and each believer creates more success. The graduates sat transfixed, seeing their own stories in mine. Tomorrow they'd start careers at major airlines, aerospace companies, our own expanding fleet. But today they were kids who'd made it against odds that would have crushed others. The world told you to be realistic. You chose to be revolutionary. They said know your place. You built your own. They called your dreams delusions. You called them destinations. I paused, meeting eyes with Jason. And if someone who should have supported you tried to clip your wings, you didn't let their limitations become your own. You flew anyway. After the ceremony, families toured the facility. The restored Victorian house held classrooms where I'd once played flight simulators, where holiday dinners happened a library, where Grandma used to read me stories about brave girls who conquered the world. Ms. Stevenson. A young graduate approached nervously. I'm Maria Rodriguez. 2 years ago, I was cleaning offices at night just like you did. My family said I was wasting my time with flight school applications. Today I'm starting at United Airlines because of your program. Because of your determination, I corrected. We just provided the runway. As the celebration continued, Jason approached. 5 years of rebuilding had changed him. The arrogance replaced by earned confidence, the entitlement evolved into empathy. Proud of you, he said simply. Not just for this, but for who you've become despite us, or maybe because of us in a backwards way. Both can be true, I acknowledged. You've become someone different too. The kids in your program respect you because you understand failure. I understand consequences, he corrected. The difference between falling and failing is what you do on the ground. Mom and Dad hadn't been invited to the ceremony. They'd sent a card respecting boundaries I'd firmly established. Our relationship had evolved to cordial distance, holiday texts, milestone acknowledgments, but no pretense of closeness. They'd learned to be proud from afar, understanding that proximity to my success was a privilege they'd forfeited long ago. 10 minutes to the scholarship announcement, Sarah interrupted. You ready? I took the podium again as the crowd reassembled. Executive Aviation's IPO created tremendous wealth, but wealth without purpose is just numbers. Today I'm announcing the Stevenson Foundation's largest commitment yet, $100 million over 10 years to create aviation academies in underserved communities nationwide. The gasps were audible. Even Richard Caldwell looked stunned by the amount. Furthermore, I continued, every executive aviation employee, from pilots to ground crew to the people cleaning our planes, will receive stock options going forward, because every person who helps us soar deserves to share in our altitude. The applause was thunderous, but I wasn't finished. I've learned that the greatest revenge isn't proving wrong those who doubted you. It's proving right those who believed. It's turning pain into purpose, rejection into revolution. It's building something so meaningful that the opinions of doubters become background noise to the symphony of lives changed. As sunset painted the sky in shades of possibility, I stood in Grandma's garden watching our graduates celebrate with their families. Some cried, some laughed, all carried the glow of dreams made manifest. Uncle Frank appeared beside me, older now but still standing tall. She would have loved this, he said quietly, seeing her house become a launch pad for dreams. She's here. I replied, touching the pearl earrings I still wore to every major event. In every kid who's told they're not enough but chooses to fly anyway. Speaking of flying, Whitney interrupted, the documentary crew wants one more interview. They're calling it From Garbage to Gold, the Laura Stevenson story. I laughed. Terrible title. How about Altitude, a story of rising above? Perfect. Martin agreed, camera ready. One last question for the film. What would you tell that 19-year-old girl cleaning planes at night? I thought carefully, then smiled. I'd tell her that the view from the ground might be limited, but it teaches you to appreciate the sky, that every cruel word, every dismissal, every person who calls you garbage is actually fuel for your engines. But most importantly, I looked directly at the camera. I'd tell her that success isn't the destination. It's the altitude you maintain while lifting others to join you. As the evening wound down, I helped clean up, not because I had to, but because I chose to. Success hadn't erased my roots. It had transformed them into wings. Jason worked beside me, stacking chairs in comfortable silence. Our relationship would never be what it could have been, but it had become something real. Two people who'd learned that falling could teach you more about flying than never leaving the ground. Coffee next week, he asked. I want to run an idea by you about expanding the Second Chance program. Tuesday, 7 a.m., my office. He smiled, the first genuine smile I'd seen from him in 20 years. Thanks, sis. As the last car pulled away and the center settled into evening quiet, I stood alone in Grandma's garden. The girl who'd been banned from a wedding had built something worth celebrating every day. The woman called delusional had created reality for hundreds of dreamers. The sister deemed garbage had become gold not through alchemy, but through audacity. But the greatest transformation wasn't mine. It was in every graduate who'd fly tomorrow, every employee who'd become an owner, every dreamer who'd see my story and think, if she could do it starting from there, what's stopping me? The answer I'd learned was nothing. Nothing but the limitations we accept, the voices we believe, the ground we choose to stay on when we were born to soar. My phone buzzed with a message from our newest scholarship recipient, Ms. Stevenson. I start ground school Monday. My dad says I'm crazy to think a kid from my neighborhood can become a pilot. What should I tell him? I typed back, tell him you'll send a postcard from 30,000 feet, then go prove it. Because in the end, that's what it was all about. Not revenge or recognition or even redemption. It was about proving that the distance between the ground and the sky was measured not in feet, but in faith. Faith in yourself when no one else believed, faith in your dreams when others called them delusions, faith that today's garbage collector could be tomorrow's CEO. The garden lights came on, automatically illuminating paths where I'd once played, now walked by future pilots, engineers, and executives. Grandma's house had become what she'd always believed I could be, a light for others finding their way in the dark. Walking to my car, I paused at the inscription we'd added to the entrance. For every dreamer who was told to be realistic, every worker who was called worthless, every person who chose to fly when others tried to clip their wings, your altitude is limited only by your attitude. The story that started with humiliation at a wedding had become something so much bigger, not just a tale of personal triumph, but a testament to transformation. Not just about one woman's journey from cleaning planes to owning them, but about the hundreds of journeys that success had made possible. Success is the best revenge. No, success that lifts others is the only revenge worth having. And from where I stood, the sky was full of eagles who'd once been told they were pigeons, all of us soaring together toward horizons that had once seemed impossibly out of reach. The view from here, absolutely spectacular, and getting better with every dreamer who joined us in the sky. Thank you for sharing this journey with me. If you've ever been told your dreams are too big, your goals unrealistic, or your place is at the bottom, remember this. The only person who gets to decide your altitude is you. Whether you're cleaning offices tonight or running companies tomorrow, your worth isn't determined by your current position, but by your determination to rise. What dreams have others called delusional? What goals have family or friends dismissed as impossible? Share your story in the comments below. Let's create a community of dreamers who refuse to be grounded by others' limitations. And if this story resonated with you, please like and subscribe. Share it with someone who needs to hear that their current struggles are just the runway, not the destination. Together we can prove that the best revenge isn't just massive success. It's success that transforms pain into purpose and lifts others while we climb. Until next time, keep flying high. Your dreams are waiting at cruising altitude.